Friends, fans, and fine folk, grab your drinks and snacks and come on down around the campfire for this short rest with me and my friend Quincy. Hello, Quincy. How are you?
Hello.
It
I am
is
good.
good to
I'm
have you
good.
here.
Good morning
Yes, and
for
good,
you.
good, good evening for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bloody
Thank
time
you.
travel.
I know. What the heck? We just figured out that it was like 16-hour time difference.
It's
So,
because just to commemorate the Spelljammer space travel-y stuff, we're just doing
oh
time travel
yeah.
as
I
well.
haven't. I haven't gotten a chance to really look into Spelljammers. I got the book on D&D Beyond, and the first thing that I checked through was instantly. I like to go to the races and the
Right,
like the things like that. Like, what can I play now?
right, yeah.
So that's all I've checked out in Spelljammers yet. Have you looked at
With
it?
the plasmoids and stuff, right? The like
Yes, 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 yes.
goo people.
I might have made a grappliest grappler type of character with the
Yeah,
plasmoid because they get advantage on grapples, and I'm like,
yeah, I saw that.
yes.
Yeah, I
Oh
saw
my
you
gosh.
asking Jason that, and I saw his video
hmm
about it. Yeah, good
So I'm
stuff.
excited to play
Advantage
that
on
one. It looks
grapples.
really cool.
Yeah,
Looks
I've
really
always
cool.
kind of been interested in the idea of making like a super grapply type, and lately I've been toying with the idea of introducing a new skill that one can take as a proficiency that's specifically about grappling, because I think athletics does a lot of
Ooh.
heavy lifting, no pun
hmm
intended.
Yeah.
I think athletics kind of like is like a go-to that a lot of people feel compelled to take if they're going to be any sort of melee, because they're like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to run and jump and climb trees and stuff. And I feel like if you wanted to focus on just being good at making and escaping grapples, I think like
hmm
wrestling or something should just be a skill of its own. Like you can do a strength-based wrestling
Yeah.
or dex-based wrestling or whatever, but it's just like
Well,
you're either proficient in wrestling or you're not.
true. I mean, like if the rules as is right now for grappling is a bit kind of like it's like a contest type of role.
Yeah,
Like if I go to grapple, I don't know if we talked about this very briefly, but like in the new Unearthed Arcana 2024 PDF that's on D&D Beyond right now, they did some clarity of rules and a little bit of updating, and they redefined unarmed striking. So basically, unarmed striking is when you hit, you now have the option to damage, grapple, or shove.
so
So
they've
it's no
made
longer contesting.
right. Okay, so they've made a grapple an unarmed strike, and
Basically.
everybody starts proficient in unarmed strikes, which is another
hmm
thing that I've always found a little bit interesting because not
You're
everybody is
scruffy.
like I
Well,
understand that
that's
like I
true.
understand that like heroes probably should be, but it
hmm
does strike me as a bit odd that that someone with like the sage background who is like a first level wizard would be
hmm
proficient in unarmed strikes, because yeah, you can punch, but not everybody actually knows technique to punch. Like you'll see
Mm.
people with thumbs inside when they're making fists, or
Yeah,
they'll like slap like this or something, and they don't necessarily know how to deal damage. And it's always kind of been like, I'm not sure if everybody should start with maybe half proficiency, but some
Does
people I
everyone
feel like
automatically
just
start with
shouldn't.
proficiency with unarmed strikes?
Yeah,
Is that like
yeah,
an automatic thing?
yep. Everybody starts
Interesting.
proficient with unarmed strikes,
Hmm.
and I'm like, I feel like monks should obviously, and fighters should obviously, barbarians should obviously,
hmm
but other classes, I'm like, maybe they shouldn't. Maybe it's a thing you should take with part of like being tavern brawler or whatever to
Yeah, I
take it.
mean that would be interesting. It looked very from face value to do an unarmed strike now as it was written in Unearthed Arcana. You hit, and when you hit, you can instantly grapple.
You can
And
choose to,
my
instead
mind,
of doing damage, you can grab them. Yeah,
so
it
my
makes
mind
sense.
automatically went to obviously the new Spelljammers raise the Plasmoid, who gets advantage on the
Advantage,
grapples.
right?
But it kind of like that
So
change
would
will
that yeah?
now
So would that
it'll
mean
it'll
that they would
probably have
get?
to be a different change now.
It might be that they get
Um,
advantage on like an unarmed strike if their intent is to grapple or something. You have
Maybe
advantage on
that's
the
something I
attack.
guess the DM would have to decide. They
That's
also
it. I'm
in
not
the
sure
honor.
that like I understand the need for it not to be like a contest, like to make it a
Mhm.
simplified role, but it also doesn't necessarily work with how easy or hard it is to grab, like to just grab a hold of somebody in plate mail wouldn't be
Mhm.
harder than grabbing a hold of somebody who's not. In fact, it'd probably be easier if anything. So your armor class is now
Mm.
saying how hard you are to grab a hold of, even if you're
Ah,
like
I see.
even if you're like you're a wizard in robes, and
Uh-huh.
you're really dexterous, and you should be able to like, whoa, get out of the way if somebody reaches out to grab you, and you like
Mm.
slip away from it, rather than like you're a big bulky paladin with a -2 dex, but because you're in
Mhm.
shield and plate mail, nobody can grab a hold of your shield, nobody can grab a hold of you. I'm not sure that like I feel like
Yeah.
maybe, yeah, I don't know. I kind of like this the idea of it making like a simple roll. I'm trying to grab you. Do I hit it or not?
Mhm.
But I don't know. Hmm.
It'd be
Interesting.
interesting. Like I
Yeah.
don't know.
Interesting
I
to play with and
look it
see if it.
over,
Yeah.
kind of see it. It's a free download right now. I also personally liked just another thought. My mind has currently been on the Unearthed Arcana since I've read it, but they now defined three spell lists or spell classes. You have Arcana, Divine, and now Primal. So
Oh, okay.
Primal spell lists are your Druid and
Yeah, I was
Ranger
gonna
spell
say
lists.
they've finally switched it because that's what something that I've been thinking about making a change for a while. Like,
Mm,
yeah, the fact that druids and rangers drawing from nature magic has always been part of the divine
yeah.
casting, and it was like I kind of got it, but it didn't feel right. So they've
Right. Well,
finally
now, like with
broken it out.
Magic Initiate, you can choose to take stuff from the Primal class.
Right.
So you could get Hunter's Mark technically in
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
now if you chose that feat. So I'm like thinking, oh my gosh, I could take my Artificer,
Yeah.
get my Magic Initiate and Hunter's Mark,
Yeah.
and start, crossbow bolting as an Artificer and get my extra
Yeah.
damage in that. I'm like, that sounds so fun to
It
me.
does. That
Um,
I like the idea of the feats when they introduced all of the like minor feats like so, to prevent the need to like too many dips into multiclassing. You can just be
yeah.
like, oh, I'll take the feat that is warlock
Hmm.
light. I'll take
Yep.
I'll take
Yeah, that gives me like
I'll
Eldritch
take a
Blast. I
little
just want
yeah.
Eldritch Blast
Yeah,
and that's it. Yeah.
I'll take Diet Barbarian. Just a feat that gives me the one thing that I want from it
Yeah, for
without having to
sure.
multiclass. And it did seem like the way they were going with a lot of the new subclass releases was away from multiclassing, like just trying to discourage multiclassing. Because
Mm.
instead of being a rogue bard, try College of Whispers. Like it's
Hmm.
you basically get sneak attack with your bardic inspiration, or like
Yeah.
they like seem like, oh, if you want to be a cleric warlock, why not go warlock of the celestial? And they're
Yeah, it's
like
like every
taking a little
class
bit of
has like
everything and
a
chucking it together.
flavor of something else if you want to kind of go with it,
Yeah,
which I mean,
there's subclass options for being like, I kind of want to be a tank wizard, so I'll be
hmm
this guy instead.
yeah. No, it's interesting.
My
It's
passive
interesting. Like
Yeah.
the
perception
new
is
they
24.
did change
I
a
see the
good bit.
following.
They made the claim now or the rule change where a natural 20 is an automatic success and a natural 1 is an automatic fail.
On everything, on skill
On
checks and stuff as well.
skill checks, attack rolls, and saving throws.
Ah, okay.
Um,
So
and
that's in
they
the new rules.
Unearthed Arcana. Yeah, and like the rule, the kind of the subtext or like the finalized sentence in that paragraph was like DMs don't let them roll if it's like
Don't let it roll
impossible.
if they can't
Like if you
succeed
don't
because
want it to
now a nat 20 is
happen,
a success on it.
don't let them roll it. Yeah.
Huh.
So it's like you don't want the
Interesting.
halfling to lift the house, don't let him roll to lift the house.
Yeah.
Just say
I
you can't do it.
Yeah, that's interesting because I don't rule my rolls in the same way anyway. Like when I'm doing skill checks, well, I not never, but I rarely set a specific DC in mind to. There's
Mm.
no like delineation of success and fail. That all of my checks that I ask for tend to be like a sliding scale of success. Like
Hmm.
I will get the roll, it's a 17, and then I think of the things that I know are in this room that you could see, which of those things would you see with a 17? I go, yeah, you'd see this and this and this, and then I won't tell them
Mm.
about this other thing that they'd have needed a 20 for. Um,
Interesting.
and likewise with lying, I'll tell them like you get a very strong impression that he's lying, or I'll say
Mm.
it's pretty hard to read, but you would probably err on the side of lying if you had to,
Mm.
or like I tend to sliding scale things unless there's an obvious like black and white answer of like, yeah, you grabbed a hold of the ledge or you didn't. Like this
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
some things are obviously you failed or you didn't, but when it's if officially making the change now to say like a nat 20 is an automatic success, I've always just ruled it that a nat 20 is as much you did the best thing you could have in that moment. So if it's impossible for you with your dark vision or whatever to have seen this thing in the room, then a nat 20 on your perception is, I'm going to tell you as much as you could have possibly seen, but it's not necessarily
Yeah.
going to be everything in the room
Exactly. You
because
don't suddenly get like superpowers and like
yeah, you
it
don't
go
get x-ray
meta
vision and
about it.
yeah.
Yeah. It's like here's all the things because you got that 5% chance. No, it's like I agree with that. I think that's logical and good for the story, and also it keeps you in the game of
Mm-hmm.
like your character to the best of their ability got this information because that's what you were looking for.
Yeah.
So here's a hint to confirm what you were trying to do. Go ahead. Now keep going.
Interesting that they're going to be introducing that as like an official thing, because I know that a lot of DMs just implement that anyway. They're just like
It
they're just
felt
like, yeah,
very
nat
much
20.
like,
It feels good to roll a 20, and everybody goes, yeah, 20, and so it should
yeah.
be like, all right, yeah, you win, you do the thing.
Yeah, and if you saw the one D&D announcement, it kind of just like was what I liked about it was they mentioned it's going to be really accessible for new DMs, and me as a
Mm,
new DM, the rules seem to be very like, yeah, that makes sense as a player. It looks
mm,
really fun, really easy, and it's easy to implement more the foundational rules a little bit better and kind of smooth things out.
yeah.
Um, but that was kind of like a question I had for you is like, what got you into DMing? I'm sure like this is, your bajillion questions all the time, but I don't think I've ever heard the answer to this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to talk about it, but I've noticed that we've just jumped straight into the
Oh,
conversation. It's flowing very nicely, and I like to usually start with setting up the short rest. We're already sitting
okay,
down around
sure.
the campfire or whatever, and we've not even set the place up. We need to set our scene. So what mission are we on at the moment that requires a short rest?
Oh, oh gosh.
What's the quest? What's the setting? Are we in space?
Well,
Are we in the desert? Are we in an urban environment? Are we in a forest? Mountains?
Um, I'm in the
Are we in a
process of
dungeon?
moving houses, so I need a break from that. That is where it's your very urban.
Urban, super urban. We're in a super urban environment. We're on an urban quest to help like a lord move his manor belongings. Maybe there's a quest where we were at a we're doing like a social subterfuge and political sort of leaning campaign at the moment. And we were at like a dinner ball or something last night, and then we heard like this scandalous rumor that one of the lords is undergoing like a divorce or something, and so he's asked us to help him move
Oh
manor.
my gosh.
And so we've gone off to help him with that, but we've been rolling athletics checks all day, lifting with the knees or the back, and we've taken a bit of damage from lifting incorrectly. Maybe a grand piano fell down the stairs, and we failed our
Oh,
dex save to get out of the way of it.
ooh, that's
And so
awkward.
we've
Yes.
decided we need a short rest. So now we're just sitting on
Mm,
some boxes in his
I
manor.
am I am down for that. I like that. Yes, indeed.
What are we eating and drinking on this short rest?
I have been inebriating in water.
Just hydrating.
Yep, just hydration. And I got some mozzarella sticks here. Just chomping on those,
I
but we
think
just
the
vibing.
I think the Lord has brought us some, like, he's opened some snacks that have been like imported from some faraway land that his
Ooh.
wife was like saving onto for something, and in spite he's brought it out, he's brought it out, and he's opened them up, and they're like Pegasus wing
Ooh, the
something.
marinated Pegasus wings and the pickled kobold's feet and whatnot.
Yeah, and we're just snacking on these other, and we're just like finger food in it, and it's like stuff that should have been kept for like a huge when the king comes around or something.
A platinum per serving type dishes. And he's like, just get rid of it. Just here, eat it.
Eat this stuff before the wife finds out. The soon to
Yeah,
be ex-wife, and he's all like bitter about it all.
it's a good
We keep having
setting.
to roll charisma checks to like try and like step on eggshells around him.
I like it. I like it.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So we're set up for our short rest. I like to also start with talking about names. We'll get back into how we got into D&Ding shortly, but let's talk about the name Quincy and Quincy's Tavern. Obviously,
Hmm.
is there anything to that isn't self-explanatory? Is there anything
Uh, I
about
mean, if
how
you're
you came up with the idea?
if you're new to me and it's the first time meeting, hello, my name is Quincy. I run a fictional tavern on the interwebs called Quincy's Tavern. This started back in 2019, where it evolved into what it is now as I play a fictional tavern keeper named Quincy, who cares about his patrons and loves good comfort food. So a lot of the content that I put out there are recipes that are very tavern-esque style, uh, made very simply for home cooks who could like also replicate it, but things that I think that DMs or party members can make for their own Dungeons and Dragons games, as well as mental health checkups that I like to do, like encouraging little videos of just like pockets of peace that I kind of describe them. A lot of what
Pockets
I
of
like to do
peace.
is like
That's a good one. Yeah.
romanticizing simple life. I like to romanticize life in the simple moments and
Yeah.
things like that. But that's what I do. But I love Dungeons and Dragons and I love fantasy, and so kind of like combining my two personal favorite ways of like just like comfort zones
Yeah.
and adventure, kind of combining
Food
that
and
all together
fantasy.
with food and fantasy. I mean, like what could be better?
What's the
Um,
what's the thing that first kicked it off to being like that has to be a tavern setting? Like you just were like, I want to be doing food and comfort and things, and what's a good place for that? Taverns?
I
Or was there something
love
else?
my favorite part about movies and shows and stories growing up was always the moments when the adventuring party or the hero or whatnot goes to someone's house.
Yeah.
Like they're on their quest and they go to someone's house, or they stop somewhere, whether it's the Prancing Pony or the Tom
Right.
Bombadil or the Benbow Inn, and it's the moment when everyone is just like either big plot moments happen there or comfort moments happen there or food. There's always awesome
Yeah.
food and it's always like either a very
Yeah,
jovial time for like
the
character
set
development.
pieces for those things are usually like big piles of food and plates
Mm-hmm.
and big tables full of banquet.
Yep. Or something simple like Howl's Moving Castle, like when Hal is making just like
Mm,
bacon and eggs, and
yeah,
just it's just that simple moment of like where you get most of the characters together around a table, and there's that intimate conversations that happen there. Those have always been like my favorite parts in stories. When I started to create content on TikTok, there was a lot of cosplayers doing their own thing, and they were like taking their OCs or original characters on like adventures, and they had storylines. That's how TikTok used to be. But I'm like, well, if I want to do that, I don't want to be like a character on an adventure. We'll put him in a
and be the guy that
stagnant
the
set.
adventures go to.
Exactly. And I'm like, that could be a real easy way for like, oh, obviously every adventurer needs a place to stop and
Yeah,
stay. But technical wise, I wanted it to be from with a theater background, I wanted to have a stagnant set. Something that didn't change, something that would make sense and familiar to see all the time. That way, if you saw the first half second of the video, you would know pretty much where you were at.
yeah.
Um, so that was like always in the back of my mind. So a
Yeah, so
tavern obviously looks.
it's good marketing thought brain to have as well, to be like people. It's there's consistency to the videos so
Mm,
that people can know as soon as, especially in a thing like TikTok, and people are swipe, watch the next one. The second it
mhm.
comes up, boom, they see that image and they go, oh, it's a Quincy. They're gonna stop and watch it.
Yeah. It pulls you into it because like it's the warm tones, it's the wooden walls and the shelving and the Edison bulbs and kind of like the greenery you see a little
So
bit. It kind
so
of instantly.
you had all that stuff already, like, or did
No,
you?
that all of this was like slowly accumulated over
Right,
years since 2019. So
right,
like I used to do it against a basic bare white wall, and then I moved to doing it in front of a fireplace, which kind of just had the shell like a white fireplace,
yeah,
and had just stuff up there. And then when I moved to Florida 2 years ago, I kind of went into what the set is looks like now with like wooden walls, which is kind of like a wallpaper type of
yeah.
situation. But like now it's got the shelving and got some greenery kind of hung up there with some Edison bulbs hanging down. So the lighting and things kind of evolved as it went. It wasn't one of these things like I have a set idea in mind. It evolved. It wasn't like from nothing to something. It
Right.
just kind of was a process of
Yeah,
just creating
just
content.
adding extra stuff
Um,
to it.
which I
So,
think is kind of important. Like you don't want to necessarily have to
Oh, a
try to
new
strive
adventurer
for
joins the
like
team.
a quote
Raina
unquote
here.
Hollywood style
Hello,
set if
friends.
you want to make something to create for the sake of creating. Just do it. Just kind of start with whatever you're gonna do and just like jumping into something that you love and
nice.
let yourself learn and evolve as you go.
So, did you know right from the beginning? Did you go through ideas of what to call it, and you were just like, it needs to be something recognizable? I'm Quincy. It's a tavern, Quincy's Tavern, or did you like think about? Were there a
It
few different options?
The naming happened literally like on the drive home from work one day, and I was thinking of a name for the character. Like, obviously, my name is not Quincy, but it's what I've been going by for the past 3 years that I kind of
Yeah.
just answer to it anyway. Like, even in legal documentations and everything, it's like people will ask me before I sign something, "Is your real name Quincy?" I'm like, "No, no, this is my legal name." But you in conversation, you can call me Quincy, and they're like, "Okay, okay, okay."
Where did
But
where did the Quincy name come from then?
Yeah, so I used to write my first creative love is writing. I used to write up tons of stories when I was in high school and in college, like half-done novels and
Mm,
worlds and
mm.
fantasy designs and stuff like that. And I had a character in one of them named Quincy because it and Quincy, Quinn meaning five, was actually a little girl character who had blonde hair, pigtails, and kind of basically imagine Harley Quinn as a toddler,
Right.
giant hammer, hopped up on sugar, and had this like
Right.
dire wolf companion type of character. And her name was Quincy, and she
Oh,
was just
a
like
new
this
adventuring
incredible
party joins
little
the team.
ball of mischief that kind of went around with other misfits and stuff like that and just created havoc in this town.
Yeah.
I love the name so much because it was recognizable. It was unique. It had a fantasy feel to it without being kind of like a Killian Gorgonoth kind of vibe to it. It
Yeah.
was simple, it was to the point. Q names are very
Robert
unique,
149
and
Nat 20.
in my mind of like a writer's mind, when I think of something that's recognizable but also friendly, any name that has a long E sound at the end, like Jesse, Timmy,
Hmm.
Stevie, Jackie, often kind of has a connotation with it being friendly or like a
Right.
friendly person. It's a nickname. So Quincy had that same feel to it. I also like etymology wise, I like K names or hard, like
Yeah.
sounding names like
Ones
Crystal
that
or
start with a
Duncan or
consonant.
Victor, hard consonants.
Yeah.
So it had that everything that I was looking for, and it was recognizable. And also, again, this is the multitude of like levels of thinking that I go through to kind of determine something as a good thing. Quincy also being five, I was born with 5 fingers with ectrodactyly. So
Right.
Quinn being five also has
Right.
that,
Okay.
5 fingers.
So the numbers always had
Um,
Oh,
some.
a new adventurer joins the
It's
team.
always had
it
some
does.
Underscore
focus
fancy
for you,
unicorn
some like
gifted a
interest.
tier 1 sub to
Some
Blue
you've
So
always
Blaster.
had
that's
a
like a
Been
connection to the
given
number.
87 gift
yeah,
subs
subtle
in the
nod to
chat.
myself on that, and it was like we'll call it Quincy's Tavern. I could name it something official or a better sounding tavern name it later, but we'll get to that down the road. And it never really changed. Then lore wise, I was like, we'll call it the Lucky Griffin if we want to get into like heavy lore,
Let's
but
just open
people
Sorry.
colloquially call it Quincy's Tavern.
Sorry,
So
something just popped up on my screen. I think I was
nope, you're
screwing.
good.
Fancy alerts are not on. I literally don't have
for
alerts
the
on
best
this page. They've been coming in my ears, alert noises left and right, and I don't
Oh,
have
goodness.
alerts on this entire screen. So there's literally no reason or possible way for OBS to even be using alerts. So I don't know how alerts are playing, and I've been frantically trying to work out how to turn them off when they literally don't exist. There's no in the sources. There is no alert box in my entire sources for this entire scene. So
Oh
OBS has
my
just decided that
God.
alerts are going to play throughout the entire thing, and there's nothing I can do
actual
to turn them off
ghost
because they
audio.
don't exist. So what I'm trying now. So what I'm trying now is maybe adding alerts so that then I can turn them off. All right. I feel like I might have done it. Let's see. We need somebody to set off an alert so that I know if it's there or not.
Boy, oh boy.
Gizmo's the first name before he turned into Gremlins. Quincy, thank you for the bits.
Did it work?
It did. No sound of the bits.
Hey, okay, we're good.
All right,
We're
we
done.
fixed it. No
Let's go.
alert sitch. All right. So, what were we talking about? So your
The naming of the tavern,
naming
which is
of
kind
the
of a
tavern.
long, very boring.
Quincy you took on as a name
of
for
thought.
yourself on this character that you'd already had, one of your original
Yeah.
characters. Even though you're not a little girl with pigtails, you decided I just like the name and it's unisex enough.
Like the
It'll
name.
work. I love it. Cool. So you took on the name Quincy and then took on Quincy, and that was around the same time as the tavern, or Quincy
Yeah.
as your name was already a thing.
So developing an original character is always fun for me, and I was like, well, I want to create original content on TikTok. I don't know anyone on the app, and no one knows me no one that I know personally has the app. So I had like complete anonymity going
Right,
into
right,
it
right. Yeah.
in 2019. And back then you could only do 15-second videos. It was like double the length of
That's right.
Vines.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the vibe it was, and a lot of people that was the lip syncing era, like when that was the only thing you could do.
Right.
Um, uh,
Yeah, I remember that. I remember when TikTok started, and it was just like that app that people lip sync to. I was like,
yeah, the
I don't get it.
musically where
But
like you kind of just doing the movement with your camera kind of thing, and it's like, yeah, that weird
yeah,
stuff. So I was doing those videos. I was doing things like that, but I wanted to create something that was my own a little bit, and so created Quincy's Tavern and kind of over the space of a weekend, as far as a character. And I was like, I'll file down, I'll kind of hone out the details as I go. We'll just put him, we have a stagnant set, put him behind the bar, call him Quincy's Tavern, and we'll get to it later. And so the very first video was just like me lip syncing a very, very cringe audio of like Rocket Raccoon yelling at Baby Groot. And that was the first Quincy's Tavern video. And it was like, and it comparatively to the other videos, it did well. And I was like, oh, okay. And by comparatively, I mean it got like 20 more views than the other ones.
right.
And I'm like, cool, that was fun. Took like 2 minutes of my time to
Yeah.
make. We'll make more of these. And as it started to grow, I saw that trend and kind of that how TikTok is like you do something once, they reward you for it. You get that rat training mentality of like, oh, I got to do the same thing over and
Yeah.
over again. Otherwise, I'll miss those views and I'll get,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. But I was legitimately enjoying it as well. I changed the character of Quincy from being this hard ass type of badass character that I had in my mind. If you've seen Arcane Vander, that was my
Yeah, yeah,
mind of
yeah.
what I wanted for Quincy. I
Ah,
wanted him to
okay.
be like that,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
everyone loves him and like
Yeah.
everyone goes to the
Rough and
bar and like,
ready, and
right.
he'll
And
stick up for
you
his
do one thing
friends.
to the bartender, everyone's gonna like chomp on you
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But then I was like, well, I can't be that character constantly, and I don't necessarily want to be known as that character constantly. So I'll complete 180 him and make him a dork. And I just had
Right.
fun with it. And I did the TikTok vibe at the time was just to be absolutely ridiculous. And I
Yeah.
was that. And it was my release, my creative release
Yeah.
from the hectic days that I would work at. I had a day job where at a diesel oil company that paid bills
Right.
wonderfully, but I needed a creative outlet, and that became my creative outlet. I'd come home smelling of diesel fuel, and I'd film a couple videos as Quincy,
Yeah.
and then just kind of like post those throughout the day, and that was my something I looked forward to. It kept the days interesting.
Yeah.
And then basically as it kind of went on, it putting more of myself personally into the videos of someone who needed a creative outlet, but also someone who wanted to encourage other people and make food and do all these things. When the world closed down, Quincy's Tavern stayed open
Right.
in
Yeah.
2020. And so like I was able to kind of like still have a place where I could go to creatively express myself, but
Yeah.
also a way that I could kind of in a weird kind of way encourage myself through the character of like how things were going to be okay. Other people really resonated with it as well, and through the pandemic, Quincy's Tavern kind of really took an upturn
Yeah.
in terms of popularity and everything, which I was very, very surprised about. I wouldn't have expected it. And
No, I mean it's as you say. Like it's a tavern that stayed open. Like you would have been one of the only places where people could still feel like they could go and hang out with, like in the Cheers situation, a bar where everybody knows your name. Like you had that, you'd established that already, that people felt like they could go in and meet a friendly face and like, oh, hello, adventurer, and you look like you've had a bad day. Should we get you some food? And like people have that. You really sort of nurture that kind of parasocial relationship as well, of them going like, this guy, this bartender is there to talk to me, and he's going to hear my problems and stuff. And then when everything else closes down and everybody's going through a particularly hard time because of an unprecedented in our lifetimes event, your tavern's open still, and they're like, let's keep going, let's go back to Quincy's and indulge ourselves in what we need right now.
yeah,
So
and it
definitely
was
makes
that
sense.
for me too. it was that for me too. When people ask, you're like, I appreciate what you wrote here, what you said here, because it helped me. And I'm like, well, it helped me first. And that's kind of like where the inspiration for all the
Yeah.
videos come from. It's like whatever I'm going through, I need mentally, or I need a little bit of a pep talk. Kind of like it's often nice to, if you talk to yourself nicely, you talk to your friends nicely, it kind of comes across very authentically.
Yeah.
So when I talk to the camera, I'm talking not only to myself but also the people who I hope reaches it specifically.
It's easier said than done. People talk to themselves in ways that they would never talk to another human being. Like yeah. People often say like I've had this talk with a friend of mine who was going through some tough things as well. I said like, have you considered like saying the things that you're saying in your head? Say them out loud to yourself in a mirror, or record them and then play them back to yourself, and hear how horrible you would be, and like what a nasty person you would be if you said that to any other person, but you get away with saying it to yourself because you don't often hear what you're saying to yourself. And like, be kind to yourself, and as you say, it comes across more authentically that you're a nice and kind person if you actually treat yourself that way as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it's true. It's like sometimes we don't realize the negative things we say to ourselves, but we'll completely be like the counselor or the therapist for our friends.
Yeah.
And, it's easier to give advice than it is to follow it, right?
Yeah.
But if we truly follow our own advice and what we know is like a proper way, it's interesting. It's very healing. So, but that's in a nutshell what Quincy's Tavern is, and that's kind of like what.
And it
what I
works
do
really
and
well.
what the service does.
And so it started sort of TikTok, and then you were like, let's expand outwards. What platforms is Quincy's Tavern on now?
Right now it's mainly on TikTok. That's kind of the larger
That's
audience,
where
but we've
base is. That's where the tavern itself is set.
that's the homebrew. Yeah. But there's also, the videos are on Instagram and Twitter sometimes, and then Facebook page. And I stream on Twitch here. We do storytime reading streams, Monday nights reading streams, as well as
Very
like Dungeons and Dragons
very cool
events on.
chill readings. Of
Yeah.
Quincy in the background reading something.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You were one of the first streamers to really raid on those reading streams, and I was super appreciative of that, and that was awesome.
Yeah, it's good stuff because I do Robert Reads on my channel as well.
Yeah, and I like to
reading
lurk
one of
on
the
those as
books or
well.
something, so it's kind of good to be like, hey, these people seem to be liking listening to someone read. Here's another one who's doing a good chill readings.
It is nice. It's like oddly satisfying. It's kind of like it's one of those things where I wouldn't have realized that I enjoy it personally either if I didn't try it.
Right.
Like I liked listening into when you were reading Pathfinder or are reading Pathfinder, and I like those streams. And it's kind of like mini painting.
Yeah.
But the first time I did mini painting, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. But I'm like, I never would have thought I would have enjoyed it as much as I did unless the opportunity provided itself.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, it's kind of cool how just things like work like that. But Quincy's Tavern is pretty much all the other stuff. A lot of people take my videos and make compilations on YouTube and whatnot. People are like, oh, you got to go after them. You're not losing ad money revenue or whatever. I'm like, I don't have the time to go after everyone who takes my videos and posts them somewhere else at this point anymore. So as far as I can tell, it's free promotion. It's advertising.
It's out there. People are gonna see it, and you gotta just pick your battles.
Can't control it anymore. So focus on what's important to me and what's.
Give me the what was it? Give me the strength to change that what I can, and the wisdom to know which I can't. Something.
Yeah, like serenity for. No, absolutely. But right now I enjoy D&D. I like learning about more of that stuff and kind of working in that world.
And it was it achieved enough success for you to be able to quit that day job with the diesel thing.
Yeah, very thankful for that. I quit my job in late 2020, so almost 2 years fully. But it wasn't like one of those off the cuff whim decisions. Like it was one of those things that I kind of like.
To leave a job that pays well as at working at a diesel company would.
Right.
For like content creation, you're like, yeah, this is going to be stable. I'm sure my bank manager is going to love this change in career. on the career form, what are you putting now? TikToker?
Yeah, exactly, right? Like that's not logical. It's not the It's not the way, especially during when the world shut down. Like again, I said I quit my job in 2020.
Yeah.
So that was when the world was still like going through its lockdown and the pandemics and everything, and the vaccine was still being researched and all that. So the fact that I did do it was when I had 6 months saved up for rent and all necessities and then some.
Smart.
So I had like if I had no income, I was okay for
An
half a
emergency
year.
fund to sit back on, yeah.
That was the most important for me. Like my car was thankfully paid off at the time, so I wasn't making those types of payments. And what I was making on the side was like through TikTok and through Twitch streams, I was making enough to pay bills, my necessities, like my Wi-Fi bill. I could pay my insurance, and I could pay like my phone bill and stuff like that. So it was a couple $100s that was going to those basic necessities. And I was like, okay, if I'm gonna go full time, am I willing to go back to a job potentially if this doesn't work?
Yeah.
Sure, but I would also be kicking myself if I didn't even try.
Yeah, for sure.
What's the quote? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second
Yeah.
best time is now.
Is now, yeah.
So I'm like,
And nowhere in
let's
between.
try it.
10 years ago
Yep.
was a horrible time to plant a tree.
No, absolutely not.
20 years ago or yesterday. There's the only times that
Yep.
you meant to. or
But the
3 weeks on Tuesday, I think, is a good time. It's just like a
At
whole
3:25 p.m. No later, no before. But no,
Yeah.
the spirit of the quote of just like do it now.
Do
Like,
it now.
Anything worth investing time and
Yep.
effort into, try. And
Yeah,
I was like,
'cause
if anyone else was.
I had the same thing. To early 2020, I was finishing my last semester at university doing my bachelor in applied mathematics, because that was the second career choice. I'd already started a career as an actor and was like, this is not working out. Gone back to university to get a real job, and partway through getting the real job, my D&D thing took off, and I was like, I could maybe make this a career. I could probably earn bills doing this. This is interesting. And then I'm like, I'm straddling two trains, like Rob Van Dam splits across two trains, and I'm like, I'm on a maths train and I'm on a D&D train here, and I can see that I'm barreling towards the end of my maths degree, and my Twitch thing could take off, and there's a tunnel coming, and they're about to split, and I've got to make my mind up which train to get on.
Yeah.
And my brother's like, who's not in the creatives industries at all, he's like, go for the secure thing, go for the maths. Just it's harder. It's going to be harder to get back on the maths train later than it is if you get off it now.
Sure.
Momentum and stuff. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right. D&D. and I jumped onto this. I jumped onto the top of the D&D train, and the maths one peeled off to the side, and I was like, well, there goes my job security. Let's see if I can make this work. And then thankfully in that first year on Twitch, people were starved of entertainment because it was 2020, and people were like, get that D&D in my veins. And it started paying the bills. It started, as you say, it started paying just enough to get the Wi-Fi bill and the rent and stuff. Yeah, and
That's awesome,
I'm
though.
lucky enough to make it a career.
Fantastic. We love to hear it. And it's true. Like the world was kind of like everyone was home and everyone wanted those communities that were calming and wholesome and encouraging and accepting and accessible. But also stories. Like, I mean, like we're storytellers by nature. We love hearing stories. We love telling stories. So Dungeons and Dragons just casually fits all those things that like we enjoy. We get to be it's an escapism, but it's also kind of like a therapy in a way of where you can be a character, but you're making decisions that you don't necessarily know the outcome of that said decision, but you still are making them. Like for me, one of the early parts about when I played D&D for the first time, and our party is like interrupted by this large guard kind of thing. It's like, what are you doing? And like for me, like I kind of like naturally instinctively shrunk into myself. I'm like, I don't know how to answer this. Like I'm playing a character, but I don't really know how to do this. Like what is going to happen? And I'm like the fear was there, and I'm like, I could completely do something different. Wait, no, like it's like when you're in a nightmare and you suddenly realize you have control of the nightmare, and you just suddenly like you just take power over it.
I'm omnipotent in my dreams.
Yeah. So like that was like an interesting kind of a click for me when playing D&D, was like I have more control over the situation than I realize. In turn, IRL, like you have more power over your story than you realize. And that was just kind of a very neat learning process through playing D&D personally.
It's interesting as well that you said like the initial start for Quincy, the idea for Quincy was like he was going to be that gruff kind of rough and ready bartender that everybody would die for in the bar. And then you said, oh, I did a 180 and I became this different dorky, lovable dork. And I'm like, but you still achieved the same goal. Like everybody in Quincy's Tavern would die for Quincy. Like they would, like if somebody came in and started harassing Quincy, the tavern keeper, everybody would be like, shing! because he's such a lovable dork and he's so wholesome. So you kind of achieved the same goal through a different direction for the.
That's true. It's kind of cool.
The character.
Yeah.
So
I'm happy with that.
So tell me about like the expansion of Quincy as like the cinematic universe, the Quincy cinematic universe of Quincy. We've got Quincy's Tavern, and then the character of Quincy has existed now in outside of that in like games that you've played, D&D games and things. You've played Quincy. And then you've got this convergence coming. So tell us about like what's happened from Quincy and what is the where is it going?
Oh my gosh, it's so crazy. Like when you take in a concept that's like a completely digital, ethereal concept and now turn it into something potentially tangible. Like so the convergence is something that we have going on next May 2023. In Pleasant Grove, Utah, here in the United States, and at Evermore Park. Evermore Park is this kind of like fantasy immersive role play LARP type of park where you come dressed if you like, cosplayed up, but you become the main character. And there's like professional actors there who are all NPCs that can give you quests and stuff. And they have guilds throughout the park. And so if you want to join the Ranger guilds, the Rangers are like, okay, to join the guilds, you have like complete these 5 quests, and they'll send you off on like fetch quests or to go do archery stuff that's there. And then you report back to like the Ranger guild master, and you know he'll stamp your pack or whatever, and you're suddenly in the Rangers guild.
Nice.
And
you have to have a ring of charisma to join the Rangers guild.
And it's just an immersive fantasy experience. And so what we're doing is we're bringing Quincy's Tavern to that. We're gonna have for a couple days, we're gonna basically a weekend, we're gonna take over the park and we're gonna kind of flavor it to Quincy's Tavern. So they have a tavern there, which is this little building, but it's got, you know, a bar there, and it's got like, you know, the shelves full of the random potions and knickknacks and things, and a fireplace hearth and wooden tables and whatnot. And so we're gonna deck it up into the colors of Quincy's Tavern for a weekend where you can do quests and things at the park. But also we have a special thing for VIPs. If you want a little something extra and you want to spend more time with me and some of my creator friends and dungeon masters, we're going to play Dungeons and Dragons. We've kind of rented out the park for this private event where you can play Dungeons and Dragons with us in the tavern or in the mausoleum or in the Vikings Hall. And it'll be just kind of like more of an intimate setting for a few select people who get that VIP experience ticket. So that's kind of like bringing Quincy's Tavern from the TikTok then to like the Twitch streams where it's a character in a D&D story to now it's you are a character interacting with Quincy, and you're not only the character but you're a hero that Quincy's sending out on the adventure in Evermore Park.
Man, you're gonna be
to do
exhausted.
A quest.
You're gonna be exhausted. Not only like organizing and running the thing, but being Quincy for the whole thing. Like,
part of me knows that very much will be true, but the other part of me exhilarated with adrenaline.
Oh, you'll get like, yeah, you're the sort of person who gets charged by that of like seeing, oh my god, I've made this thing and this is real because of the work I've put in. And
well, just seeing the reactions on people, like not necessarily so much. I'm excited for the work that's being put in and the effort my team is doing to make it a reality, but also just the reactions of people and seeing how they respond to it. That charges me so much more too. Like that's the encouragement that fills
so you
me.
Won't so you will be exhausted, you just won't feel it yet. You'll be
I won't
exhausted
feel until the night is over.
As soon as it's over, you'll be like, oh my god, that was amazing.
then I hibernate for 36 hours, right? Yeah. That's what'll happen.
Man, that's exciting stuff. How did it start? Where did the impetus for this come from?
So Evermore Park survive the pandemic kind of by the skin of their teeth, for lack of a better way, is as like an in-person park where that relies on actors and people. It's really hard to go out to anything in person for 2 years from 2020 to 2022.
Yeah.
But now with the wonderful things of vaccines and people getting stronger from it, and the world is opening up a little bit more, Evermore Park started to do more promotion on TikTok. as you do. And so my business partner Jason of Critical Dice got tagged in one of those videos of theirs, and he was like, have you ever heard of Evermore Park? And I'm like, yeah, but they contacted me last year in 2021, but I didn't really feel like it was safe to really go out there at the time, and so I kind of didn't really commit to anything.
Right, yeah.
So he got on the phone with them and wanted to see about doing a Quincy's Tavern weekend, like a Friday, Saturday, because that's normally what they're opened at. And he's like, what if we just came up for a weekend and we just kind of like, Quincy's Tavern was there. I was, at the time, he was having this conversation with them. I visited the UK with some friends to do another Dungeons and Dragons luxury experience. And I came back from that learning a lot. And I was like, hey, is there anything like this domestically? And he's like, I don't think so. I'm like, what if we did it domestically with some of our friends, like who we know on TikTok, like Dungeon Masters and people who have like loved Dungeons and Dragons through the pandemic? And what if we did it something where those of us that people that got me through the pandemic and played Dungeons and Dragons and loved Dungeons and Dragons, and we played together online, but we had an opportunity to all of us get together at Evermore Park and play for real with people and make it a domestic luxury D&D luxury immersive event. And he's like, that's really cool. And so we started talking with Evermore Park about making something like this a reality. They were blown away. They were super excited about this, because not only would this be, business wise, marketing wise, really good for them, all this attention now at Evermore Park, but it was just something that fit both of our niches and what we did very, very well. Like, we love Dungeons and Dragons, but we love making it quality and immersive, and they provide an immersive quality environment. So it really is the best of both worlds, where like for 2 days we can play Dungeons and Dragons and play out the stories, and then for 2 days Evermore Park allows us to become those characters. So you're at a table for 2 days, then you're playing the character for 2 days. And it's just like that. Like, that's just awesome to me, and I think this is going to be really,
it's not an
really
experience that many people will have the opportunity to do outside of this. Like, when do you get the chance to both act as your character in the game and then outside of the game as well, playing them. Sounds exciting. It's making me wonder if I can make a trip to Utah in May.
If you're able to do it, we will. If you do it, we'll pay for. I'm coming in now. I'll get your lodging and get your food.
Right here.
But you gotta get yourself over here. I know.
I reckon I could genuinely consider it. I've started thinking about like all the places that I've got friends and fans and fine folk who. Like, if I make travel a focus, like there are places I could go that would be able to somewhat help pay for the costs of getting there just by me doing like a ticketed event once I'm there. Like if I ran a couple of games while I was in America, to say like, buy tickets to come play D&D with Robert for a day or something.
That'd be cool.
I could do things like that to try and offset the cost of travel, and then I could travel more. And I do love travel. So it would be something that I am thinking about already, being like, where can I go that has enough of a fan base that would actually want to pay for tickets to come and play D&D with me, so that I can afford to actually do it myself. So maybe if I put feelers out, and there's enough people in the US or that area of the US that would want to meet up with me outside of this, then I can tack this on as well. Make it worthwhile for myself.
For sure. Well, you keep me updated on that.
And
I know a mutual friend of ours, Dead Aussie Gamer, Dag, he's planning on trying to make the trip as well. So he's got a lot of things to consider with that. And I know like traveling out of Australia, New Zealand into anything else is kind of like a bit. I don't know quite your travel restrictions or like your limitations and everything, but I heard it can be kind of a bit. That's good. That's good. A little bit better than what it was.
To open up and travel becomes more available, particularly to those who are properly vaxxed and everything.
Good. Well, yeah, keep me updated on that because we'd love to have you there. That'd be so much fun to kind of like
Amazing.
get the
It'd be
a
my
good group of people
first
together.
time getting anywhere close to like LARPing. I've always said
Yeah,
that I've like stayed away from it just because I know that it's like Dungeons and Dragons is already the gateway drug, and I know that I'm looking at LARPing going, nah, I can't, nah, I shouldn't,
it's
nah,
like,
I
oh,
can't
my
do,
wallet is
I
screaming.
can't,
It's like, don't do it.
no, I shouldn't, I can't do it, I can't, not even once, as the saying is. No, not even once. I'm like, also, whenever I'm not LARPing, there's always that extra level of that I can look down as like, those are the nerds. Yeah, sure, I'm a maths guy and I play D&D for a living, but I'm not. At least I'm not a LARPer nerd.
I'm not in elf ears and like tromping around being like fireball, and I throw like a sponge.
There's always an extra layer. I don't know what are the LARPers look down on as the real nerds. What is the level below that LARPing? I guess.
I'm not sure actually.
Because as soon as you get into it, I imagine it's like we're not looking down on nerds, we're looking up at them. We're aspiring towards. There must be a tipping point after you get the apex of nerddom where you're just like, oh, I'm leaning into it. I'm leaning into it, and I'm like, look, I'm trying for the next thing.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. It's
Good
true.
Stuffs. Yeah, man. It sounds exciting. So it's how many days overall, like total?
So the guests will arrive May 2nd,
Right.
and the event goes until May 6th.
Right.
So that is about 5 days.
And people can buy tickets now, or is it?
People can buy tickets now. The convergence events. Right now we are 25% sold on VIP tickets. So for that entire length that I described from May 2nd to May 6th, is only open to 100 people. And we're about 25% sold. With others very considering much like kind of waiting to kind of get their travel things together and things proper in order before they kind of buy that ticket because it is a higher ticket item. Or you could just come for the weekend, Friday, Saturday, where that is like more like an $80 for a weekend pass. Which is much more doable, for more people. But we'll still be there, and that's still the convergence, and you'll still be able to kind of come to the tavern and do the LARPing stuff.
Who else is converging? What other names you got?
If you're familiar with like Dungeons and Dragons TikTok, you'll probably know some of these people's names. So One Shot Questers was known for doing kind of a home. Yeah, kind of doing he does like the back paladin kind of thing where like the twerking paladin type. He's funny. The Smoking Barrel is a duo couple who does also similar tavern TikToks like I do, and it is a husband and wife team. Right. They'll be there dungeon mastering. There will also be Tim Woods is a dungeon master, one of the first professional dungeon masters in America. He does it professionally in New York, and he's going to be running one of the tables. Kate Welsh, who does a lot of Dungeons and Dragons stuff. Like I think she's the head designer for one of the Dungeons and Dragons books, the Ghost thing, something like that. I forget. Yeah, Ghost of Saltmarsh. I think she was like the head on that, designer on that. So she has wonderfully accepted to be one of our dungeon masters as well. Katie Asaurus, and her husband are going to be there and dungeon mastering one of those. We have we're in talks with other people that I can't really name right now because I don't want to like confirm for them. But a lot of it would be kind of like people that if you are on D&D TikTok a lot of those names would be familiar, like Mr. Kurt Wise, Misty Mountain Legends, That Great Gentleman, and obviously myself. I'll be dungeon mastering a table.
Cool.
Man, it'll be kind of cool.
I'm getting so excited for it. I don't even know if I'm going. I'm sitting here going, oh, it's going to be so fun, and then I'm like, it's going to be fun. I guess you're committing yourself. I'm going to get so excited that I'm like, well, I have to get a ticket. I have to get there. I'll be on the bloody flights later today. Been like, right, flights to Utah.
No, but it's we're excited for it. Very, very excited for it, and it's kind of like neat to put something together where like we can like the community, the Dungeons and Dragons community, can come together for a very unique event that is geared towards what we love to do.
Yeah, I love it. So let's shift gear because I said that I eventually would get back to your first question when we started,
Yeah.
when we started of like how I got into it.
Yes, I want to hear your story, Mr. Robert Hartley.
All right,
GM.
so we'll talk origin stories of how we got into D&D. So I got into D&D the same way most people do, through hip hop, obviously. That's the usual path that people take, isn't it? I was an out of work actor. I'd done a I don't know, I can't even remember what it was, like a theatre piece or something on the street, like an art installation-y thing to commemorate some World War. I think it would have been 2014. Yeah, I think it was 2014 because it was to commemorate 100 years since the start of World War One, and it was a fantastic piece. It was like an interactive theatre piece on the street where we were all dressed in full World War One gear and completely grey. Everything was grayscale.
Wow.
And it was this to the point of like everybody had contacts in to like grey their eyes out and everything. So it was a fantastic piece, and I was working with a guy during that, another actor fellow who was like a movement artist more than an actor. He like focused more on his hip hop and choreography and that sort of thing. And so we got talking, and he we added each other on Facebook and whatever, and then a year later he started this like hip hop for actors thing. I think he needed money, and he was like, yeah, I can do hip hop, so I'll start a class just for like out of work actors specifically. And so a bunch of actors got together and did hip hop classes, and I really enjoyed it. And then it would, after every session, we would have like a sit down shared food situation. Everybody brings something, and we just chat about how's your week been and stuff. And we all got to know each other relatively well. One of the fellas during that sit down, Kai, was sort of nervous about coming out as a dungeon master because he was like, so it was still very stigmatized and stuff. It's like 2015, I think it was. But he mentions like several sessions in that he's like, oh yeah, we're like, what do you do for fun and hobbies and stuff? And he goes, I play Dungeons and Dragons. And it was like, oh cool, and didn't really think much of it. Later 2015, I went back to the UK to visit some friends and family, and while I was there visiting a friend in Oxford, she took me to a shop called the Thirsty Meeple, which is a board game cafe.
That's awesome.
And it is wall to wall, floor to ceiling board games, shelves, just thousands and thousands of board games. And I was like, this is incredible. And I had such fun there, and I thought it was such a great idea because I've always enjoyed board games, but I've always thought it was prohibitive how expensive they are to buy and how much space they take up in your wardrobe and stuff to try and like actually store them. So for a few years, I'd already been having the thoughts of like, how would one do like a board game rental service, so you don't have to buy it for the like 4 times a year that you're ever going to play it. And I was like, but you'd have to put a deposit down because there's a lot of board game pieces that go missing and stuff. And then I saw this board game cafe, and I was like, oh, that's how you do it. You rent it in the space. You go to a cafe and you rent the table space for. And I was like, that's brilliant. If they don't have it in New Zealand when I go back, I'll start one. And so I came back to New Zealand, immediately looked it up, and they've got one in New Zealand, in Auckland, called Cakes and Ladders. So I started attending Cakes. Yes, great. So I started attending Cakes and Ladders and got really into board games. I started watching Will Wheaton's tabletop series.
Oh, I love that series.
Fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so fun to see him and all of his charming friends playing games. So I started getting into Geek and Sundry and that sort of thing. And then I saw them playing Dragon Age, which is another TTRPG. And it was the first time I'd seen a TTRPG like that. And I was like, I watched them playing it on Will Wheaton's thing, and I was like, this seems really fun to just like come up with, like, have a character sheet and all of this. And then something in my mind went, isn't that what Dungeons and Dragons is? And like, I'd obviously known something about it, like through the zeitgeist and through hearing about it and stuff. And I was like, isn't it like nerds dressing up as wizards in your mother's basement and eating pizza and hitting things with wooden swords? And then I saw them playing Dragon Age and was like, I think this is what Dungeons and Dragons is. So I got in touch with that fella that I'd met the year before and said, hey, you do Dungeons and Dragons, don't you? Would you run me a game? And of course, like all good drug dealers, I mean dungeon masters, he was like, yeah, let's do it. They use they pronouns now, but yeah, they said, yeah, let's do it. So they set up a game. I turned up, and they said, what do you want to be? And I was like, I don't know the first thing about the game. I don't know anything about it. And they were like, okay, well, we've got a druid and a fighter, I think. So we could have this, or this as like to fill the niche. And I was like, what do those mean? Because I didn't know what a ranger was or a rogue or whatever. And so he goes, well, a ranger's like this, and a monk is kind of like a Jedi. And I went, stop there. You had me at Jedi. I'll go monk, sure. And so I played an elf monk. He just printed out. They just printed out a pre-gen character. For an elf monk. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And we played for like, I don't know, 4 hours or something. And then at the end of it, I was like, come on, just keep going, another hour,
Another session.
And then you know, just like good drug dealers, they were like, no, the first one was free. but then the rest of they got busy. They didn't run another game. I pestered them for once or twice about like, can we get another game at some point? And it just never happened. So I went months without playing again. But I was now watching. I was like trying to get that fix somewhere else. I started watching Critical Role, binging that. I got myself the Player's Handbook and just like read that cover to cover like 7 times. It's just I learned a lot about the rules of D&D by watching Critical Role and then trying to correct them in the comments like in proper asshole. Because I'd be watching and then Keyleth would do something and she'd be like, I cast Gust of Wind or whatever, and I'd pause it and look it up in my Player's Handbook or whatever, and I'd be like, what's Gust of Wind do? What is VSM? Oh, vocals. Okay, so it means she needs to say a certain thing, and then she has to do a certain component, and then she has to blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. And then I'd play the thing, and then she'd do none of that. And I'd be like, that's not how you cast a spell. So I had a crash course in the rules of the game, but also then I started like reading a lot on like Reddit threads and stuff, horror stories of D&D and things, and learning secondhand from other people's experiences. Like, oh, don't be that guy, and don't do this, and this is how a good game is run, and this is how. And so like I wasn't even playing, but I was learning a lot about the game and how to play and how to be a good player and things like this. Eventually, somebody at Cakes and Ladders was like, I'm going to start running a D&D game. And I was like, me, please. I'm here. I joined his game in true Joel fashion, as is his wont to do. I became really close friends with him, and he's run a lot of games over the years for me now. But he always has like a fantastic story, a fantastic idea, and a fantastic world building. He's got all of these ideas for something, and they're always amazing. And then he gets like 10 episodes in and loses steam for it and just stops. And so he did this with the D&D. We got like, I don't know, 10, 12 episodes in or something. Before he goes, I feel like a break. Do you want to take over as Dungeon Master and run something yourself? You seem like super keen on the game. And I was like, yeah, I'll give it a go. So I got myself the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Monster Manual. I started running a homebrew game, and I've been a Dungeon Master ever since. Like I just became the forever Dungeon Master.
And what year was this when you kind of
that was end of 2016.
Oh wow, yeah.
End of 2016, I started that game, so I'm coming up on 6 years playing that same homebrew game, same campaign, and they're still playing the same characters in the same world. Because of having to take a lot of time off for university in the middle of that. At first we were playing like once every week, then it went down to once a fortnight. When I went to university, it went down to like once a month at most. Like there were periods of like 3 or 4 months at a time when we didn't play at all, unfortunately. So they're only level 12, but over 6 years.
Wow.
So whenever people ask me, like, how long does a game usually last? I was like, a campaign or a session? Because a campaign can last, like, decades. Uh,
That's wild,
Yeah,
though.
pretty
That's
crazy.
so cool.
In the third session of that homebrew game, I had stupidly and naively agreed to say yes to 7 different people playing in the game in the session for the third session, because I started with 5, and then another friend from the board game cafe was like, "Oh, I heard you run a game. Can I join as well?" And so she joined, and there were 6 of us. And then another person was like, "Can I join?" And I was like, "The more the merrier," not knowing better. And so by the third session, there were 8. There were 7 people, 8 including me. And it was just too much. It was just way too much.
Yep.
And at the end of the session, 2 of them were like, "I'm going to bow out." And I was like, no, don't go anywhere. I'll fix it by the 4th session, I promise. So on the 4th session, bam, a door came down in the middle of the dungeon and separated them into a group of 4 and a group of 3. And then I've been running 2 concurrent campaigns ever since in the same world.
Oh my goodness.
Which I thought was like, oh, it's not double the work because it's the same world. So there's only so much world building you have to. Because now I have to keep a really close track of like timelines and shit, and like what one of them has done in one city is going to affect the other people, and it's so much more than double the work to run 2 concurrent campaigns. And so I took what I learned from running 2 concurrent campaigns, and I started a 3rd concurrent campaign, and then a 4th, and then a 5th. So there's now 5 ongoing campaigns in that same world.
Gosh. That's what.
So thankfully for me, the Viva La Dirt League guys are in a completely different world, different IP, different everything.
Yeah. And I saw that you do that, and you guys were like on episode 200 and like.
We got up to episode 100. We got up to 100 and 104 came out yesterday.
104. That's awesome. That's crazy. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. So how that came about, just quickly, is a really good friend of mine, Spidey NZ, who I saw in chat before. I don't know if he's still there. There he is. Really good friend, Spidey, mutual friend of mine and Adam's back in the day, and Adam from Viva. And he said, "Hey, I've watched this Shut Up and Sit Down thing where they reviewed Dungeons and Dragons, or they reviewed some TTRPG. I can't remember if it was D&D. And they did like 3 episodes of just like playing it. And I don't know if you know, but Shut Up and Sit Down is a board game review.
Yes,
board game
I'm
review.
familiar with them. Yep.
So they did Dungeons and Dragons, and they made it a 3-part thing. And he sent me this link and said, "This is a pretty fun way of looking at the game." And with the Viva La Dirt League guys doing a series of short skits set in like a World of Warcraft sort of high fantasy game, they had the NPC stuff. So Spidey said, with your NPC World of Warcraft high fantasy characters and your comedy style, and this guy's DMing, and he didn't even play with me at the time, so I don't know why he knew that I was a good DM. I think he just heard from other mutual friends that were playing with me that they enjoyed my games a lot. Or maybe
Nice.
I was the only dungeon master he knew. I don't know, but he put us together and said, like, I think D&D might be a good fit for your channel and different content. And thankfully for me, they said, "Oh yeah, let's give that a go." So we got together and did a one shot. And after we'd filmed it, they said like, it didn't turn out in the right sort of quality as we want for the main channel, so they put it on their Patreon. The people on Patreon were like, "Oh, this is amazing! That was really fun. You should do that more often." So they said to me, if we can get like decent funding to do it, so that we can do it to the proper production quality, then yeah, we'll do it again. And right around the same time, Wizards of the Coast were reaching out to all sorts of content creators all over the place, looking for new sponsorships and new promos. And they happened to reach out to the Viva guys, just copacetically, saying, "Hey, we've got Descent into Avernus coming out. Do you want to run a game of it as a promo?" And I said, "Yeah, man, let's do that." So they gave us a bit of money, and we did a 9-part series, but it was half-hour episodes.
Yeah.
And so I had like they were commissioning us for it ended up as 9, but it was going to be 8 episodes at half an hour each. And I was like, okay, so that's 4 hours of content. Which part of Descent into Avernus do you want? And they were like, all of it.
All of it.
And I was like, I mustn't understand then, because it obviously hadn't been released yet, and they weren't just going to hand a nobody the entire book. So they were like being really coy about what was being included and stuff. And I was like, so I mustn't be understanding. It was my understanding that it's a campaign module that runs from level 1 to 13 or something, whatever Descent into Avernus is. And they're like, yeah. And I was like, so which part of it do you want me to run for a 1 4-hour session? And they were like, just Just like, so start about at the beginning and go through till about the end. And I was like, I don't know what do you play D&D? Do you what? Also, I don't know what the can you send me the book then? And they're like, no, we're not going to send you the book. And I was like, how am I going to, what do you want? How do so they sent me.
Do you understand a pickle that I'm in right now? Like, do you see what consternation is on my face?
So they sent me like a bullet point outline of the plot of the entire Descent into Avernus, and they sent me like a list of all of the major NPCs in it, and they were like, if you can just include these NPCs and those plot points, it would be fine. And I was like, all right, let's do it. This will be the most railroady game I've ever railroaded. Let's do this. So I started them out, and I was like, right, you're off, and you make a saving throw. You fail it. You go to Avernus. Oh no, you go to you sucked through into because I had to also get them from the world of Honeywood, the world of their own epic NPC man world.
Oh yeah.
To Baldur's Gate world in like Faerun or whatever. So they got sucked through a portal, and now they're just dumped outside of Baldur's Gate. Oh, what are we doing? What are we doing here in Baldur's Gate? You've got no time to work that out because somebody charges in on a horse and she's got a puzzle box and she dies right in front of you and says, "Take this to so and so," and he's like, "Oh, where's so and so?" And then somebody else behind you goes, "Oh, I know where so and so is. Follow me." And they go off to Fallister Fisk. And then there's a fight.
You're kind of just like dragging your party all over the place.
We're going this way now. We're going over here. Here's D&D for you. So I'm running it around. I'm trying to give them moments of brevity and moments of like, here's some room to breathe for this one scene, and let's move on. And here's combat. It goes for one round, and then we're moving. So I had to fit as much as I possibly could in. And so so we stuck that up on the main Viva channel. People who liked it really loved it, and the people who were used to them doing like 3-minute content were like, what is this sudden 180-degree turn in your content style? I'm not having it. So and then a lot of other people who didn't understand the requirements that I was under were like, who's this shitty DM who's railroading you hard? He's not giving you any room to breathe. He's not like, this isn't what Dungeons and Dragons is about. You've got no player agency and all this. So there was a lot of people like, no thank you, but the people who were like, yes please, were like, yes please. more of that. And so we were like, I think a second channel might do well. And they made the Viva La Diddly D&D channel, and just as we filmed the first session of a free-flowing campaign, an ongoing sort of thing that wasn't under time pressure anymore. And then just as we'd filmed it, we were like the day away from filming the green screen stuff for it, because the sort of point of difference for us is that we'll do half-hour episodes and we'll intersperse it with green screen content of what we've done at the table.
That's really cool. It's really cool.
It's something that I'm sure we're not the only people to do it, especially now that Corridor Crew are doing a similar thing and stuff like that. But like, we were the first that I knew of to be doing that sort of thing, where you're like acting out the stuff that's happening at the table to put into like more of a sitcom half-hour lengths rather than like actual play 4 hours.
But that shows
every
like
week.
the quality that you're trying to go for and the extra effort you want to provide in your content.
Yeah,
you're not just filming your table, then posting it and calling it a day. You're actually like going back to it and be like, okay, let's
making
do this
it a production. Because that's
scene.
one of the big differences between like making it as a successful actual play or not, is like you've got to recognize that there is a difference between making a product for people to consume and just playing a game at a table. Like filming your table session, as fun as it is for you to play, is never going to be successful if you just film that and put it up. Like,
exactly.
Yeah, so we had to
what
have that
brings you
extra
back to
something.
it, like as a viewer and a consumer, what brings you back to it? And for me, it would be like, oh, what scene do I get to actually see happen? Like, and how are they going to do that?
We see them expand on? They make a joke at the table, then they expand on it in the green screen. Yeah. So we were a day away from filming the green screen stuff when New Zealand went into lockdown in March 2020, and so we were like, we've just started this new channel, we've got no content to put on it, we've just been hyping it up on the main channel saying D&D content coming soon on this new channel, and then it's like, oh, okay. So immediately I said, we need to do something in isolation. We need to do something over Roll20. We need to do something in the meantime. So Adam said, yeah, good idea. Let's reach out. He reached out to Wizards and said, hey, because of the pandemic and everything, can you give us like a little bit of money and we'll do something like a short series. And we did the isolation games just so that we had something to put on the channel. So we did a 4-part, which again became a 5-part because D&D.
Yes.
Became a 5-part series of a different thing, but it allowed us to showcase our own world for the first time. Like this was the first time that people were really seeing us in the Honeywood world, in the Epic NPC man stuff, with a lot of the in jokes and things of that. But on that channel, and people loved it. Then eventually, obviously, when the pandemic lessened enough that we could start getting together for filming stuff, we filmed the green screen things. We started editing it together, and that's where it began, and it's been taking off. It's
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's
so that's how I got into it. That's how I started
through
doing it.
hip-hop.
Through hip hop.
As you do.
And then because of the isolation games, people were talking about how good it was, and like, oh, who's this Robert guy? Because for a lot of people, it was the first time really seeing me. Because this Robert guy is doing a really good job. A friend of mine contacted me and said, they're talking about you on Ben's channel on Twitch. And I was like, what's Twitch? And she goes, oh, it's this thing, and she sent me a link, and I logged in, made an account, and just, because you got to stoke your ego. If they're talking about me, I've got to see what
Absolutely.
they're saying. So I pop into Ben's channel, and I say like, oh, hey guys, and they're like, oh, he's here, we were just talking about you, and I was like, oh, what a coincidence. What were you saying about me? And they were like, oh, a bunch of people in Ben's chat were like, you should stream as well. And I was like, what would I stream? I'm a dungeon master. I'm not an artist. I didn't, because Ben was doing art. I was like, I'm not an artist. I don't know. And they're like, it's not just for art. And I was like, oh, what else is it for? And I looked at Twitch, and I was like, oh, I'm not a video gamer. I'm not a video gamer, and I don't do music. And those are the 3 categories that I was seeing mostly. They're like, no, you can do whatever you want. Just stream whatever you want. People will watch what. And I didn't know, like, at the time, that they were literally meaning stream anything and we'll watch.
Yeah.
Like, these people watching right now, they're all crazy. They just tune,
I know, right? Like,
they tune in at the weirdest hours. They tune in at the weirdest hours. So they've got people have got alarms to come and watch me, and I'm very rarely doing anything worth watching. But
who are you people? Why are you here?
But yeah, I started streaming, like making D&D monsters and things, and just chatting and talking about the isolation games, and like doing some behind the scenes stuff. And it took off in a big way, and I was like, that's when I started going, I think I might be able to do this as a career.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's super cool. Thank you for telling me that. I love hearing people's origin stories. I think that's super fascinating. But no, like how you were saying, like I loved how you said, like, oh, we had a 4-episode session that turned into 5. I think that was like our first interaction, if I'm correct, of like myself playing with you through Dag's 1-shot that turned into a 4-shot type of situation. Yeah. No,
yeah.
Was a fun time.
It's always the case, isn't it? But so give me yours. Give me your origin story. How did you get into D&D?
Dungeons and Dragons for me.
When you first hear about it?
Yeah, it was actually after Quincy's Tavern. I really got into it. So I'm really, really new to Dungeons and Dragons comparatively. Like, I think I really started playing it like late 2020 when I really started kind of getting into it.
What were you into that was like high fantasy genre that made, because Quincy's Tavern was obviously perfect for D&D, but it was before you actually were into D&D. So were you just into like fantasy gaming and things?
Kind of more like Legend of Zelda is like one of my favorite video game franchises, so very much akin to that. Treasure Planet was one of my favorite movies. Right. Obviously Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, and Chronicles of Narnia. So loved fantasy, and I grew up reading a series called Redwall, which was like anthropomorphic animals that had an abbey, and the good characters were like mice and squirrels and badgers, and the evil characters were rats and weasels and foxes.
Right.
But they were like literally all like druids with bow and arrows and swords and stuff like that. And it was just it was something that my my teachers made me read to kind of get more of like a reading comprehension in my brain. Right. So it was kind of like more scholastically than anything, but I fell in love with fantasy and stories like that. Nice. Through college, I heard of D&D and I knew kind of what it was, but when I actually started to do kind of more of a deep dive into it after Quincy's Tavern, because I knew Dungeons and Dragons was fantasy. Like when I think fantasy, like as a genre, Dungeons and Dragons is obviously very much a big part of it. So logically to me, when I use hashtags, I will tag it Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know what it is, but I know that's the genre and the audience that it'll hit.
Right.
So
So right from the
that
beginning of Quincy's Tavern, you were tagging it D&D?
I would know of it. I would like tag it Harry Potter or anything fantasy related.
Right, okay, yeah.
And Dungeons and Dragons wasn't really even a hashtag on Twitch or TikTok at the time, but I would tag it that because I knew it's the same genre and
Yeah,
niche.
gotcha.
But people were like, "Do you play Dungeons and Dragons?" I'm like, "No, I have no idea.
Not a
Like, I don't know
nerd.
what a D20 is." And I was like, maybe I should learn. And prior to that, I would watch Critical Role, and I thought it was kind of fascinating how like voice actors, play Dungeons and Dragons, and having an actors in theaters degree, I'm like, oh, that's just improv.
Yeah.
You're literally just improving, but you're not god modding it. The dice are telling you if you succeed or not, and you got to go off of that. I'm like, why haven't actors utilized this concept? Because you literally are creating a character, you play the character, you stay in character, and you have to roll with complete plot twists, side punches all the time. I'm like, that's a wonderful, fun exercise.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that is fascinating to me. Like, when I describe Dungeons and Dragons,
I can imagine drama schools in the future having like D&D class. Like you've got your movement, you've got your voice, you got your singing, you got your D&D.
It really is. And I'm like, okay, so if you succeed, you go, you roll the D20 and we'll see how it goes and react to it. It's perfect for actors. And if you're trying to do that, it's perfect for actors. And that's what I like, a logical, oh, I'm not a nerd reason to fall in love with it. I'm like, I'm learning the art.
So like, well, I'm playing, but I'm not enjoying it. I'm just doing it for I'm just
research, right?
I'm just researching.
But lo and behold, it is something that is just super fun, and it just kind of tickles all the like creative aspects I enjoy. Like when it comes to now writing campaigns or one shots or stories, you only need to do so much because then the player or the consumer fills in the rest of it with what they want to do.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, it's like half writing. It's like a half world building. You just set the plot and the scenario and the set, and you just let your players / actors have fun in that sandbox.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's just super intriguing to me.
Sorry, go on. I don't want to interrupt you.
No, it's good. Like my first time playing was I was invited to play on a one shot with Dice Cream Sandwich, and he was trying to get together some TikTokers to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Your first time playing D&D?
My first time playing D&D
Dice Cream Sandwich
was with Dice Cream Sandwich on a stream, and I'm like,
God.
I hope I have no idea what I'm doing. But I will roll the dice and ask you and like try to figure out.
What a horrible way to get a misunderstanding of the industry as a whole. To be like, oh, every dungeon master's like this guy, and every session is filmed, and you're gonna get such a skewed view of what D&D is for the most part of the world. To be like, oh, everybody's as amazing as this dungeon master and stuff.
No. It was a learning
this
experience.
Is the average.
I was like, everyone is like a professional actor in what they're doing and stuff. No, I'm not even like it was just a good learning experience, and it was just fun to play. But when I play something that I'm ignorant in, I'm like, I want to come back next time and make sure that I know everything that my character can do, and I know my side inside and out. So like, I'm not a hindrance to the party or to the viewer.
Must be nice to have people who work that way. I've been playing D&D with Rowan and the Viva guys for like 3 years now, and Rowan's playing a barbarian. I literally made him the class that is easiest because you rage and hit things, and he's still asking me, which dice do I roll? How does rage work? Must be nice to have players like you, Quincy, who go, oh, I feel like I'm letting the team down. I better research what I can do. I better know what my character sheet is.
Well, I chose to play a bard, my first one, because I was like, oh, it's the jack of all trade ones. I'll be a bard. And it was like over my head all the things that I could do. I'm like, what is inspiration? What cannot do?
Work?
And
what
all that like resource management.
So I'm a level 6, so
doing.
I can cast level 6 spells? No.
That's what I thought. And I'm like that's like my thinking. I'm like, what is all of this?
You'd think.
Logically. But learning a lot of it through just like personal reading through the player's handbook and watching a lot of like how-to videos and guides and stuff like that, but also learning and watching other people play to really analyze how they do it. And I'm like, oh, you can literally ask anything.
Yeah.
And you just go with it. I'm like,
huge,
that is
huge sort of penny drop moment when people first realize, like, oh, anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was like what really kind of drew it home for me. It was like, I could do whatever I want, and the dice will say yes or no, Dungeon Master included. And I'm like, that is super intriguing. And so like I kind of very much fell in love with it, and would play whenever other people would invite me. So like Dag invited me to play on the Fool's Gold one. Was probably my fourth time playing D&D ever. Like, so very, very new as I was. But that's when I was like, I'm gonna be super chaotic and just be like, can I really do anything? I'm gonna do this. Like, and then all of you guys are like, yeah, we take this Scoville and put him in the dirt and stick a straw into it, let him breathe. I'm like, oh my god,
bury a goblin alive.
I'm like, this is Dungeons and Dragons. I love it. This is great.
Yeah, man, that was a good one. If you guys haven't seen it, it's all available on YouTube on various different places. If you head to my YouTube, all of the places you can find me playing is all linked in a big document, so you can go to one place to find everything. But yeah, check out those Fool's Gold sessions. They are very good.
But ever since then, just absolutely love D&D, and I got the opportunity to DM my first time a couple months ago for a homebrew world that's called the Curious Few, where Quincy's Tavern has a kind of a bounty wall for new adventurers. So you want to be an adventurer, come to Quincy's Tavern, and all you level 1, 2, and 3 heroes.
This is where you
Here's your starting ones, and these are safe ones that you're kind of sponsored by Quincy to go do, and that you'll come back safely. And
like a bunch of fetch quests, like here's go get me some mushrooms and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And then maybe something happens on the way, or a very easy like escort mission type of situation. So it's kind of like something that I'm gonna also do to help me as a dungeon master learn, called the Curious Few, where I take new adventurers or lower level adventurers on very simple missions, but it's kind of pretty chaotic.
Is it like Westmatch's camp style then? Like everybody's got a central thing and just like a moving group of adventurers, like or is it the same team? Same party?
It would be kind of like a different group every time. Yeah. So like it would just be different adventurers. Be like, oh, okay, you want to be part of the Curious Few? Okay, here's your. That's kind of like what I label like the new adventurer kind of party.
Right.
You're part of the Curious Few.
Right.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I love one shots. I prefer one shots over like a campaign type situation, because it has a beginning, climax, and ending, and it's kind of tied up in a little bow. That's personally also because it's my preference, because I've never been part of a full-on campaign, like from beginning to end. I haven't had that 6-year experience to do it. So it's kind of like a fast-track way to do one-shots, is to get in, solve the problem, have fun, get out, and not have to worry about coming back in a week and worry about scheduling.
Interesting. Yeah, I know a lot of dungeon masters who feel the opposite, myself included, where it's like I just don't get the same enjoyment from one shots as I do from a campaign, or at least like a 3-shot or something. Like Dag ran the pirate thing recently on his channel that was 12 episodes. And it was meant to be like every other week, and then because of scheduling, it ended up being like 12 months. But it was, it was like I don't know, it was like 8 months or something to finish it. But we were playing pirate campaign, and we knew going in it was going to be 12 episodes and done. And it gives us really a decent chunk of time to like get into the characters and get into like character arcs. My guy got this like slide down into greed and corruption. As he was like, because gold in Dag's world is like a cursed thing, and so everybody uses silver instead. But my guy found some gold and like a lantern that would show him the location to the destination of this long forgotten mythical legendary gold pile or whatever. And so I started like my whole character arc was this thing, and then in like the the antepenultimate episode, I got to literally get my own corruption removed from my body, and then we fought it. So I fought myself as like a bad guy, and then for the last 2 episodes, I got the chance to like have that redemption arc and stuff. So with a 12 episode thing, you get like you get a lot of time to sink your teeth into characters and stuff. And even like 3 episodes, I find you have a little time to have like a character arc. In one shots, the story can be quite fun, like the individual story, but I don't feel like the role play has a lot of time to shine, because especially if you've got like 5 or 6 players, you're like, we've got 3 hours, 2 hours sometimes, where it's like, okay, let's try and get all of the story, beginning, middle, and end, and satisfying character arcs and things. Which you can fit into a movie because it's all edited well, and like there's no like moments of what should we do, or should we go shopping, or should we like umming and ahhing and trying to open a door and failing. So you can fit a very satisfying story with character arcs and everything into a 2-hour movie in a way that you can't with a 2-hour game.
Yeah. No, I do completely agree. And again, I think it might be also that experience, that lack of that I currently have, is like I haven't had the opportunity to really become emotionally invested with a character, to really have that full-on arc and like see that growth and change throughout like actual time and space. And because I'm such an episodic thinker, and I think in individual content pieces, that's kind of like the attraction one-shots have to me, because I think like part of it is also as like a marketer or as like a content creator, what is in my mind accessible for a consumer, a one-shot, not necessarily a 12-episode arc that if they come into episode 9 and something pivotal happens, they're like, well, I'm not emotionally invested. What does this matter to me?
Yeah, that's why I think 3 shots are like a really nice sweet spot where you can, if you have missed the first one, you can still catch up before seeing the second one. If you've missed both of the first 2, it's a little harder, but you're not going to miss out on too much, because like there's only 2 episodes of stuff you've missed. And by the 3rd one, and each one, like you've literally got a beginning, a middle, and an end of the 3 different the 3 different games. So I think those are a good middle ground where you've got enough time to really flesh out scenes with each of the individual interactions between the characters and stuff. You've also got time to do the character arc and the plot arc. But it's not so much that it's hard to pick up on, because that's one of the hardest things for actual plays, is like having so much content that people are like, how am I going to catch up? How am I going to keep in? How am I going to jump into episode 603? It's like One Piece.
That's kind of like what I have right now. Like even with campaign 3 of Critical Role, I'm just like at the very beginning, I'm like, I'm going to watch every episode. I'm going to keep on time and everything. And they just released like episode 30. I'm like, I don't know. I'll get to it eventually. I'll watch the Cliff Notes thing.
I'm like 10 episodes behind on campaign 3, and early on I was like, I don't think I'm going to keep up with campaign 3. I think this is going to be the first time that I've had to just throw in the towel and be like, I have to admit defeat. I can't watch campaign 3.
It's just so much content.
But then I was like, oh, but I really love it. so I've started listening to the podcast version, which isn't as good because you get a lot of like, he'll bring out the map or something, and you'll hear all the reactions of, oh my god, this is amazing, when did you get this commissioned and stuff, and I'll be like, what are you doing? But it's easier to keep up with when it's a podcast, because I can listen to it while I'm walking the dog and stuff, but even so, I'm still like 10 episodes behind on it, and it's just so long. It's one of the best things that I found about why Viva La Diddly does 30 minutes, 35 minutes. It's like people can watch it on a dinner break. And if you miss it,
it's bite size.
You can find a half an hour in your week to watch it to catch up before the next one.
And it feels like it's bingeable then too. It's like, oh, I got one done. Okay, one more. Okay, one more. It feels like you are more in control of the outcome of it, which that just kind of goes with what it is. But I empathize with that. It's kind of like, do I have time to do this when like literally my schedule is so.
So talking about like that just one more kind of culture that is very inherent to things like TikTok. I want to talk about TikTok with you, because I was doing a short rest with Careful Cantrip recently, and they were like, you got to get on TikTok, man, and I was like, nah. And he's like, no, seriously, you got to get on TikTok. It's amazing for the growth of your channel and your audience and stuff. I'll pause just for now to say we're coming towards the end, guys. So if you do have questions for me or Quincy, write them in the chat. If you redeem them with your 50 channel point thing of D&D question, then I won't miss them when they come up. So make sure to ask us your questions so that I can include you guys as well. I am aware that I ignore the chat for the vast majority of short rests. It's just how it is when you got such a fascinating guest to talk to instead. So with TikTok, I did upon Careful Cantrips suggestion, I went onto TikTok and I grabbed the handle Robert Hartley GM and stuff. So I was like, I've got that if I ever do want to post. I've started putting together shorts for my YouTube page. Fancy helps me edit my Twitch tales every week, and puts some shorts together for me, and those seem to be doing fairly well on YouTube. And I was just like, is it enough to just go take the YouTube shorts and stick them on TikTok, or how would you say, as somebody whose primary career started around TikTok, tell me about the platform and what I should know going into it?
Pros and cons of it. Like you'll get a variation of opinions. It's kind of like the opinions of how to do well on TikTok are about as variant as there are DM styles.
Yeah, gotcha.
And it kind of boils down to the principles of the app itself. Is your video, when it's posted, will go in front of somebody who is associated with that content or that hashtag. So it'll go in front of somebody. And I kind of akin it to a Hot Wheel car on top of a track. So it'll go down and you'll get through that first loop. And then that second loop, when you get to the second loop, it'll have so much momentum, it'll probably fall back and maybe go stagnant.
Right.
Now, what boosts it will be like interaction. If you get a certain amount of likes or views or, interaction within that early space, imagine a booster suddenly appears on that track and it'll get you through that second loop, and it kind of like goes through like a threshold milestone type of thing.
So if you put up a video, it will be shown to, like, is that a thing that, like, your videos will be shown to people who subscribe to you, follow you, whatever the terminology is?
It'll be shown to people on the For You page. It'll go onto the For You page.
Right. People who have said, when you get onto TikTok, you say, I'm interested in this, 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 and this, and then you are shown videos from those things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you'll be shown the ones that are more generally, when you start TikTok, you'll be shown the ones that are the most generally well liked, the ones that get the millions of likes and hundreds of thousands of likes, because that is what it goes across a large variety of generalization. But as you start flipping through TikTok and you're like, oh, I like this person's video, and
the ones that you pause on and watch, the algorithm will go, he paused for a half second longer on this video, so more of that, and he skipped past that one, so less of that, and it'll start tailoring to you.
Exactly. And so my suggestion is that whenever you post your shorts, and you can absolutely take your shorts and put them on TikTok, that is completely fine. I think that'd be great. Is put your hashtag Robert Hartley GM or something that is akin to you. Right. Robert Hartley GM, hashtag that, hashtag Dungeons and Dragons, hashtag D&D, and anytime someone watches your content, and even if they don't follow you, but they watched it, you post another video with hashtag Robert Hartley GM. That has a higher chance of going back in front of them because they already interacted with a video with that hashtag. Okay. And that's just typical social media marketing. So that's what I did with Quincy's Tavern. My first video had hashtag Quincy's Tavern, and I've always hashtag Quincy's Tavern in all my videos. So people who don't follow me will still kind of come back and
they've seen
know
Quincy's
what that
Tavern, but they haven't clicked the follow, but they happen to stop and watch every time yours comes up, they'll still get shown it. Yeah.
And so that's the marketing power of TikTok, is that your videos will be shown to people who don't know you. Like, granted, they will also be shown to people who follow you and everything, but the power of TikTok is the fact that it is shown to people who aren't looking for you necessarily. YouTube is powerful because people will seek you out, people will search for you, and that's the power of YouTube, is that people who come to you want to see you. TikTok, they discover you. They're like, oh, that's kind of cool. What else is there? So that's kind of like the difference of intentions, I suppose, with the platform. Like when people were like, oh, Quincy's videos, I didn't know you posted anymore, or like I didn't realize that you haven't been in my For You page in like forever, and I'm like, well, that's not my fault. I've been posting. You just haven't seen me. It's just now that this video did better, it's now shown to people on the For You page to a more generalized audience than the specific D&D fantasy
you post
culture.
something and it goes onto the For You page, and if people are actually interacting with it, and what counts as interactions on TikTok? Is it just enough to watch it? Do you actually have to click it to watch the whole thing? Is it...
It kind of goes with different levels. So like a view is your basic, a like is your basic, a comment adds a little bit more interaction, a share or a save or a repost obviously has more value to it as well.
Any of those counts as like interactions, just some of them are a little lot more weighted in the algorithm.
Some of them, kind of like, a view would be like 1 point, a like is like a point, a comment is like maybe 2 points, and a share and a repost are both like worth 3 points. And it just kind of like just throwing numbers against the wall type of situation, spaghetti against the wall of like the weight that a certain interaction deals with more. From what I've seen on TikTok. But I think if you want to market yourself and you want to network yourself, TikTok is now the place to really go to. Because it's your content not only is your content, but it also is a billboard. So like YouTube has your ads that have nothing to do with your content before or after, or however you have your ads set up. With TikTok, there's no videos in the middle of ads yet, thankfully, because it's supposed to be a short form content. And as you scroll, it's like Facebook, where every 3 or 4 videos you'll get an ad video. Versus if you are sponsored, your video becomes the ad, and then it's kind of like mixed in with everyone else's. So it kind of there's that different power of marketing that TikTok has versus other platforms. So is it good? I think it's the most powerful social media we have right now in terms of getting an idea or concept or content out there. It's the best for marketing. Is it the most sustainable? That's where it kind of like is kind of hairy. Is like it's TikTok fluctuates so much that it's based on the audience and on the people that, again, like you get into kind of almost like a rat in a scientist lab where like you have to do one thing, only that, and that one thing only. So
and you have to constantly be second guessing, I imagine, of like, why did this one not do well? I did everything the same way as I did on all the other videos. Why is it not? Is it something to do with the content? And then you get this like you get this confirmation bias to see patterns where there aren't any, and you're like, oh, when I put this video out that was about this content and this video, they seem to do well, but this one that wasn't about that didn't do as well. So I'll only put out video, and you like start focusing on things that aren't. I can imagine, and then you become very more in your head about the whole thing.
Exactly, and you start battling shadows then instead of creating content. So I suggest that if you do, you put out content that you're still happy with, and that you will obviously naturally always find an audience that likes your stuff. So
I think I think it's important, if one can afford to do so, to have like a second pair of eyes, like to have you being like the creative with the ideas and the contents, and the like, I'm just making the things that I want to make, and then somebody else to look at the stuff and go, okay, this didn't seem to be doing well, and blah, blah, this one maybe, and so the person who's actually making the creative stuff isn't the person who's like obsessing over which hashtags to be using and stuff like that, maybe. I don't know.
Interesting.
I'll definitely be talking with the Viva guys as well about how to market the D&D channel a little bit more, because it's gotten a little stagnant. Like, it had some fantastic explosive growth at the beginning when we first started the channel. It also has been steadily increasing since then, but like lately kind of, it feels like we've gotten all of the audience of all of the Viva audience who are interested in D&D are already across and watching the D&D channel. So now we need to find audience elsewhere, like from the D&D world rather than from the Viva world. And I think that there's a lot of work we can be doing on that to expand outwards into D&D space and
D&D space on TikTok is very much thriving, and that would be something that to really kind of put your name in that pool that's swirling around.
Swirls around into seeing everybody. It's good that it's a space that people seem so welcoming and like enjoy hanging out and stuff. I've found with my series here, that the short rest that I do, the number of guests I have is in no way dwindling. Like, I have infinite guests that I could happily reach out to and be like, hey, how's it going? Would you want to come on? And there's like big names as well, like B. Dave Walters is a name that I'm like, I'll have him on at some point, because he's said openly like, oh, I'll generally accept any invitation to podcasts and shit that I'm invited on, because why not?
Yeah.
So yeah, he's on my list of like, I'll go talk to B. Dave when I've got something to talk to him about. I don't just want to reach out just for the sake, but I'd rather start with people that I actually have worked with and like done acting with, done games with and stuff like you. Where I'm like, I want to introduce our communities to each other if they don't already know. Like, this is Quincy, this is Robert.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. I definitely am going to be looking into TikTok a lot more. I think it'll start with just putting my YouTube shorts on there already. I've got ideas for more YouTube shorts that are more originals rather than just like snippets of things that I've already done. Because how do you feel about there's kind of an argument to be made for short form content being its own thing, or short form content being snippets of long form content, because the things I hear an argument for the latter is that if people see your snippet of something longer that's just like something taken out, a scene taken out of context, or like a particular NPC voice that I'm doing in Twitch Tales or something, and they go, that's fun, I want to see the context for it, and they go and they like, there's a continuity between the long form and the short form content. They can go to my YouTube page, find the long form content, and it feels like the thing that they've already enjoyed as short form. Or is it that they're like, you're never going to get that that tick over, because people who are enjoying the short form aren't the ones that are going to go over and watch the entire 3-hour episode that snippet came from? Should I be focused on making content specifically for that 15 seconds to a minute snippets?
I personally look at it as a different perspective. Like, if people don't click over, then they don't click over. They enjoyed your content and they enjoyed the moment and the funny bit, and that was it. Yeah. But those who want to see more and were like, oh, if this is like a moment in this campaign, I want to see more of this campaign, then you have a click over into that YouTube channel and you get the ad revenue from that. So then you're getting a follow through to potentially get another subscriber on a platform that actively seeks you out.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing wrong with taking your content, snipping down really good moments and putting it out there, because it's still networking, it's still marketing. There is something to say about the benefit of short form content, because it's easier to produce, quote unquote. You can produce more of it. I personally like to do content that I'm happy with. So like, and I say that, from the position that I'm in, to be able to like post, what I want, when I want, at whatever length it is. But I would still even suggest, if you were starting out, that you post content that you're proud of, that you're happy with.
Right.
And doing long form content in a short form content space will instantly and immediately get you a more focused audience who is there specifically for what you want. And I kind of feel like that's a little bit more powerful than a generalized 15-second video that could get anybody and everyone.
Right.
And that's more of like, for, if you want a numbers game, play the numbers game that way. I more so go for the quality and the quantity of the people who want my stuff for that. Like, if I know I'm going to get Viva La Dirt League or, Robert Hartley GM content in kind of like a minute and a half content on this channel, I'll follow it for that, because I expect that. And then I can be like, oh, that was a funny episode. I want to, like, what's the context of this whole situation?
Happened. Yeah. So kind of getting the best of both. If they just want the funny snippet that was context free, they're like, haha, that seemed funny voice, funny character, and then they move on, and that's all they wanted from it. Then they'll stay on that channel and they'll stay just focused on that content. But if they want the click through, that's when you'll get it. Yeah,
and I think it would be it doubles your content for just doing one thing. Like, you already made the content and you're just going to clip it and put it out somewhere else to kind of like make a trailer to people, to send people to that long form.
Speaking of, we're actually putting together a trailer, because we're trying to reach out to more of the main channel as well, because every so often, like, the main channel is still growing. They hit 4 million on the main channel a little while ago, so they're still like, hey, there might be new people that have watched that still haven't heard. Oh, they've got a D&D channel I can go and binge. So they're putting together a second trailer for it. It's going to be good.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Let's with the last few minutes then crack into some questions that people had for us.
Sure,
Creative
sure, sure.
Garden has asked, both of you read non-D&D books on stream, but I've noticed that Rob sticks to public domain books and Quincy reads more current copyrighted books. Does Twitch have different rules based on the performer laws for the country you're in, or is this a personal decision each of you have made?
Personal decision, but also there are free use laws that first require you to not require people to pay to watch your VOD. So like that's why I don't have my VOD subscriber only. And I also it is performance based. So I'm not putting up like a recording of of the book that I'm reading. So like when I read Percy Jackson or Harry Potter or anything like that, it is like a live reading. From what I understood in the research that I did, I suggest you do this for yourself if this is something you're planning on doing. Is it could be performance based, and because of the pandemic, they relaxed on the rules of like people reading on like through Zoom or things like that because it was very much akin to going to a library and someone reading a book to you in public.
Yeah.
So you're not charging for it. You're not trying to get sales from it. You're not saying that you are the author of it, and you're not putting any Photoshop photocopies of it online to be recorded or reproduced.
Yeah.
You're just reading it, and that makes it performance based. That makes it transformative, and it's enough to be
the bottom
in the free
line.
use.
The bottom line was: are you making money from someone else's work? If yes, then no, you can't do it, and if no, then you can. So if you are making money from someone else's work, it's a little bit grey because obviously Twitch, you get donations and bits and subs, so you could be argued that you're making money off somebody else's work. If you are doing if you're doing a live reading of it, then you are performing that book. You are, especially if you're putting on voices and things for it. But even if you're not putting on voices, the cadence of how you're reading and the pauses that you're putting in and any sort of pausing for the book to talk to audience and interact that way, that's all part of performing it. And so you are creating something else, some new work that did not exist. You're creating from somebody else's, and in a similar fashion to like how if a musician sampled somebody else's music in their new song, as long as they've changed it enough and they've just used it for like a snippet of the chorus or whatever, then it's free use because you've taken somebody else's work as an inspiration to make something new. But yeah, copyright laws are confusing and difficult and very grey, lots and lots of grey areas. And so for my decisions, I was like, there's enough classic works that I haven't read that are in the public domain. I'll steer clear of everything, any possible problems, and just read public domain books. It's not
And
like
that's
I'm
completely
short
fair.
of them. But yeah,
And that's something that I'm
it's
personally
definitely
trying to do too. Like there's so many public domain books that I could take recordings of and put those on YouTube because that's public domain.
Yeah, you
And
can actually literally record them and do an audio book of them.
Yes, and that's what I kind of plan on doing in the future. But for books that are like the Ranger's Apprentice series, those are not saved. Those are not put anywhere else except on the temporary VOD of Twitch, and then when they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah.
And that's the point of them.
There's also the element of easier to ask forgiveness than permission. Like there's an element where you can just be like, if I'm not big enough for this to be an issue, then don't stress about it. Like if somebody comes to me with a cease and desist, then I can take it down or I can stop reading it at that point or whatever. But otherwise, it's not worth hassling yourself over it. If as Quincy said though, if it's something that anybody is considering doing, neither of us are lawyers, neither of us are copyright lawyers. You just make your own decisions. Yeah, make your own decisions about whether it's right for you to do or not. Fancy asks, where do you want to go with Quincy's Tavern into the future? Very good question.
I have obviously books being written and other forms of physical lore that I would like to get done. Like obviously there's a cookbook and that expands on the lore of Quincy's Tavern. Quincy's not the only one who lives in this tavern, and Quincy wasn't the only one who helped make this tavern come alive in this fictional world. There are many characters. There is another cook in the tavern. There's obviously Coco the Griffin. There is a bard who comes all the time, and there is the whole world underneath and the history and background of the tavern itself. So stories are being written, and I was approached a good while ago by a good friend of mine who he owns a film studio or an animation studio in Spain, and he inquired of me. He's like, "Have you ever thought about Quincy's Tavern being a show, like a TV show?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Well, I have a place. If you have a story, it could be, I'd love to see it. And I'm like, okay. So the hope would be to make a graphic novel of Quincy's Tavern, and then be able to send that to studios to be like, here is your storyboard, here's the art, here's the idea, here's the concept that is working, that works. Maybe we can make this into a show. That would be a wonderful kind of like longer term goal.
Oh man, that would be exciting. That's fingers crossed for that then.
Yeah.
You mentioned the griffin. I was going to ask you about that and completely forgot. Tell me about where your griffin came from. Where did the
Little Coco?
Little
Coco. Coco the griffin, the forever cursed with
plushie,
youth little plushie. That was from Makeship. Makeship does custom plush toys with content creators and stuff, and they reached out to me with this one over a year ago, and they were like, with your audience and such, have you ever thought about having a plush toy? And I'm like, that is cool, yeah, sure, let's try to see what we can do with it. And so basically I send them the concept of what I want it to look like, and they deal with creating it, fulfilling it, and delivering it, and then I get 33% of whatever comes in through sales, which is it works for me. It kind of like helps, and then my community gets a really good quality product.
And it looks like an incredible good quality thing, like a really cute design, and the really nice looking.
Yeah, the stitching on it is nice. There's a lot of detail on it, like little hair on the tail. The wings are sewn on pretty tightly. There's like little felt lining on the side, but that is also sewn. And then you have like really good stitched eyes and everything. So it is a quality piece.
Why a griffin? Where did the idea of a griffin companion come from?
I love griffins. Griffins are kind of like it's like a cat mixed with a bird. So like you got the cuddliness of a cat, but you also got kind of a coolness of like a parrot on your shoulder type thing. It's like the best of both worlds. And when I was thinking of like how I would name the tavern, if I named it lore wise, or I named it kind of more of a fantasy place, I was like, griffins aren't really, in my mind, aren't as highlighted as dragons. So something that is still magical, little cuddly, but just as kind of fearsome potentially. Let's go with a griffin. And when I looked up some lore of griffins and kind of like their power and their mythology, and I'm like, yes, I love griffins. So it kind of worked really, really well.
Nice. Yeah, I always thought that griffins have kind of been done dirty in the stat block, like a lot of things in 5e is a lot of just homogenized kind of, take away the name and would you even know what it is? Like it's got a bite and a claw and a sack of hit points. So it's a little bit
justice for griffins.
Justice for griffins. I love using them. I've got a few different griffin minis that I like using because they're such an interesting like random encounter thing as well. You can chuck them in a lot of different terrains and like mountains or plains or forest even out at sea if you're close to the coast and stuff like that. So I do like using them. They're pretty cool. And it also is one of those monsters that you put in that if you want to give your players like a little bit of morality thing of going like, they're just beasts, they're just hunting. Should we really be slaughtering them should we try and scare them away? And so if you've got that sort of a player group who's a little bit more inclined to be like on the moral side or moral quandaries, you can chuck griffins and then they'll go, all right, fighting's not going to work here because we don't feel like killing them. Let's see if we can scare them away or capture one or use magic to charm monster and then all that sort of thing. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, for sure.
All right, so that's where you want to go in the future. We've got Redial asks, is there a TikTok equivalent of the silver play button?
I don't think so.
You get to certain milestones and you get like things gifted. TikTok doesn't reach out and be like, congratulations on 1 million, here's a thing.
No, I mean, I've reached out to TikTok several times on trying to get verified simply for the safety and simply for the safety of that this is my content and any other account is not me. And I've been denied several times because of it. So it kind of just is what it is. That is the con I will say with TikTok because of how big it is. Its relationship with its creators is pretty lackluster.
Right.
So go into that knowing that you probably won't get a lot of support from the company itself, but the power behind the potential is what it is.
Right. Okay. So, and that's
YouTube definitely cares more about its creators.
Seems like TikTok is aware of that. They're like, we don't.
They don't care because there's no one else really challenging that.
Where else are you going?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. L Brown asks, when's your cookbook coming out?
As soon as possible.
When it's ready.
That's all I can honestly say. If I had a date for you, I would be shouting it from the rooftops, and you wouldn't hear me shut up about it. But there's a lot going on right now with it, a lot of behind the scenes things that I can't really talk about, but it is being worked on every day. It's just taking longer than I would have liked it myself.
And they're all from what you can talk about, they're all your recipes. Like, there are things that you've come up
all
with?
original recipes. A lot of recipes that haven't even.
How long have you been into cooking? Like, when did you come up with recipes?
Since I grew up watching in America here we have called the Food Network channel,
right.
And grew up watching that constantly as a kid from probably like 8 on up. Watching the Food Network channel and just love cooking. If I didn't go into theater, I would have gone into cooking.
Right.
And so I always wanted to open up a diner, or some kind of themed restaurant, and a fantasy restaurant was always something on the back of my mind. So it kind of just everything that I love doing is in Quincy's Tavern. But yeah, there's 60 recipes in the book, and every recipe has a story, so a background story or an origin story, an inspiration story of how it came from. So like, for example, one that I'm really kind of happy about is called a duppy pud. A duppy is actually another word for a ghost or a spirit or a malevolent a haunter. And so the recipe is a lava cake.
You make a pudding and then you throw it out and then you eat what was there.
So the idea is that with a lava cake, the inside is molten. So the story is that a baker had a haunted bakery, and ghosts were haunting his area, and he knew that. And when he exorcised the ghosts from his place, the cakes were molten inside because the ghosts were haunting the cakes. So that's where the idea of a duppy pud came from.
Awesome.
So that's going to be like a recipe in the book for like an alternate take on a lava cake.
Love it.
So stuff like that.
So is it going to be, if you can talk about it, is it going to be like, here's some breakfast recipes, some lunch, here's some puddings?
Yeah. So sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sun mid, sunset.
Nice.
And
it was middle of the night.
Sunrise, sunrise, sun high, sunset. That's
Nice.
kind of the terms we came with it.
Cool.
And then last meals, and then drinks. As well as like
last meals, just for adventurers who know that they're about to die. This is your last meal.
More like dessert. But then also like special like toppings like jellies and butters and seasonings, kind of things that you can kind of like relay back to be like, okay, use this seasoning or butter in this recipe as a topping or a garnish type of thing, and to kind of really like make the whole book pull together.
So you've come up with all of the recipes yourself? You've got any that you like were helped with from like?
Yeah, well, I mean, my co-author really helped with a lot of the kind of coming up with the idea of what a lot of the recipes are as well, and the stories. So they are, a lot very familiar recipes. A lot of them are from TikTok as well. Like Thief Stew is just like a crock pot version of beef stroganoff,
right.
And stuff like that. Or like Nightmare Potatoes would be like Oreo Rice Krispies, and it's just like very simple recipes, very accessible meals that aren't super complicated, but very much presented with a fantasy spin. And that's kind of the whole thing.
I'll have to get it when it's out, because I'm a terrible cook. I don't know the first thing about cooking. It's never been a huge interest of mine, but I do like eating well. I like food, but I like cooking. So like when I get HelloFresh and stuff, I'm fine with that. I'm like, yes, give me a recipe that I can follow and a thing that's nice and simple and easy and gives me something.
And you have all the ingredients there, and you put it all together.
Ta-da! It's there. I'll have to give it a go. Adro asks, what's another cat-bird creature? A smaller one, a poison-immune one. I don't know what you're talking about, Adro. I'm going to just ignore that because she's trolling me. Redial asks, what would be a good entry point for Quincy's Tavern, platform and episode-wise? Very good question.
Oh, like if you're new to the content?
Yeah, people don't know your stuff. They're from my channel or whatever, and they're like, who's this guy? Let's check him out.
I mean, if you'd love to check out the content on TikTok, I have a couple pinned videos at the very top there that are kind of the ones that, if you're very new, it kind of introduces you to the world of Quincy's Tavern, a little bit what I go with. So it's like story times, as well as just like a day in the tavern, kind of very fantasy, fictional world, role play stuff. So yeah, so I have some pinned videos at the top of my TikToks that
Excellent.
if you'd like to go check those out, that'd be a good starting point. But anytime you scroll down through, if you see a picture of food, that's kind of what I also love to do as well. Like
I
you'll
love
get some
the
recipes.
I love the editing idea too, because it's like looped videos, right? So the to start with the thing as it's finished and you like presented it, and then like you work your way through it, and then it ends where it begins. So it loops. It's very clever.
Yeah.
Very clever. All right. Well, that was a good place to leave it then. I don't want to take up all of your day. Got a busy day, busy rest of your evening ahead of you, and I've got to get on with my day as well. So this was absolutely wonderful, though. You're such a delight to talk with, and such a delight to roleplay with in the times that we've had available. I've really enjoyed our food fight. If people want to see the two of us role playing together in Dead Aussie Gamers games, you can find it on my Patreon. I don't know if it's on yours as well. You got yourself a...
Not yet.
Is it
Not
well,
really.
you can find it on my Patreon. If you head over there, you can find the first 5 episodes of a home game that is aired nowhere else, where it's all food based, food magic and things. I'm playing an undead chef, and which side are you on? You're on that side. You're playing a fairy maitre d, or a what's your title in the
I don't even know what Salen's like title is. It changes all the time. And you're just
Salem's like
no,
a
he's
dog's
just here.
body. Yeah, Salem's just the dog's body of the restaurant that we run. This failing restaurant, and we keep going on quests to get more and more exotic foods and stuff and bring them back. It's a very fun game, and lots of like guest stars and things. We the most recent one we played with Jason from Critical Dice.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me, Robert. This was a lot
It
of
was
fun. I
an
really
absolute
appreciate
blast. Do you have anyone online that you'd like to raid? I always like to give it the option to my my guests.
Let's see. I mean, I see Rowan is live right now.
There's a lot of people online.
Dredd is live. Dredd is doing a 72-hour charity stream.
Oh yeah, Dredd's on the charity stream. Let's go raid him.
Let's go say hi to
Yeah,
Dredd.
let's go support Dredd. He's on a charity stream at the moment, raising money for Starlight Children's Foundation.
Dredd's good people. Dredd,
Yeah, he is a
I
very
like
good
playing
guy.
with Dredd. So that would be
Fantastic
perfect.
role player
But
as well.
thank you for having me, Robert. I'm actually gonna go start my own stream, and we're gonna have a wonderful night at Fortnite. But it's not D&D, so let's go say hi to Dredd. Though,
Say hi to Dredd. If you haven't checked
Yeah.
out Quincy on Twitch, though, do so as well. And I will catch you guys in the chat next time, and Quincy, I'll catch you the next time we're working together. Enjoy the rest of your day, man. Bye,
Good
everyone.
night, everybody.
Oh, hey, look at that. It's the end of the video. Don't forget to hit subscribe. See if you can get me to that next arbitrary milestone of 10,000 subscribers. That'd be pretty cool. Thank you.